Call to order. Take a roll call. Yvonne Harper, President.
Tanner, Vice President.
Kevin Lanier, Treasurer.
Ian Schulmer, Treasurer.
Joe Holley, Director.
Was the notice, confirmation of notice, was the agenda posted? All right, the approval of agenda, there's going to be a couple of amendments. I make a motion to amend the agenda to allow John Bordelon to speak after the approval of minutes, and then to add under new business as item A, the discussion and then vote on the Greenbelt parcels. All in favor?
Aye.
And number 4, the approval of the minutes for October 6th, October 13th, and then October 15th. So I make a motion to approve the minutes from the October 6th special meeting, the October 13th, and the October 15th Board of Directors meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Mr. Bordelon, you're on.
Is this live? I can turn it on. Is it live now? I may not need it.
Get real close to it.
Get real close. Or pick it up.
There you go.
Yeah, it's on.
That'll do it.
Okay. Yeah. I've been asked by the president and the general manager to come to the meeting tonight to briefly explain why we are I'm recommending to the board that the upcoming proposed sale of a couple of large Greenbelt parcels that are subject to our settlement agreement, that we deviate from the original settlement agreement in one respect. And so very quickly, I'll let everybody know, in 1999, I sued on behalf of the association a family who bought the Greenbelt parcels and tried to develop them and cut them into lots. And so, as a consequence of that lawsuit, we reached a compromise settlement agreement that's recorded in the public records. Your president and general manager have copies of this agreement. In the agreement, we serve as trustee and we hold title to all the Greenbelt parcels just to make sure nothing can be done with it but 3 specific things. And one of the specific things that it can be sold by the Williams family for conservation easement purposes. And that's when developers need to do off-site mitigation for projects. In this particular case, this developer is working on the new Publix that's going to be by the Lowe's. Anyway, so they're on a fast track and they start, they stop. But right now, what's happened is that over the last 15 or 16 years, there's been kind of an evolution by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. So we came to the conclusion that the best way to handle this transaction is to not take title. Typically what happens when we sell a Greenbelt parcel for conservation easements, we deed it back to the developer. The developer puts a conservation easement on it that restricts forever the use of this Greenbelt parcel for anything. It has to remain in its natural state, except for maybe some fire prevention efforts. Then we take title back. We, being the association, take title back and hold it as fee simple. And we have to pay some minimum taxes on it. But when we take title back, it's subject to the conservation easement. So we're just merely sitting there holding it. We can't do anything with it. So this developer said, hey, you know, you've got to approve in advance this and that, and you know, it was all kind of like getting complicated. And I said, time out, you know, to save the association a lot of attorney fees and a lot of effort, would your client be willing to keep title to this Greenbelt parcel after the conservation easement is put on it? Because I didn't want the association to be responsible to the FDEP for this, that, or the other thing that we have no control over. the way the FDEP works now is that they mandate certain things that have to be done forever by the owner of the parcel. So the solution, and we're gonna recommend this be done on a case-by-case basis in the future. The solution is Holley by the Sea, as trustee, go ahead and deed it to the developer. The developer will immediately, at closing, put a conservation easement on it in favor of the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and the U.S. Corps of Engineers. Normally, at that point, we would get a deed back to Holley by the Sea. But instead, the deed is gonna be kept by the developer. Because he can't do anything with it, you know, he's already put the conservation easement. But it spares us from being the owner of the parcel. And it spares us from having the legal responsibility to FDEP for whatever they agreed to do. So we are gonna deviate, if this board approves this proposal and authorizes the president to go forth on this particular transaction, using round figures, I think it's about $100,000 that they're paying. We get 5% of that, so the association's gonna get a $5,000 check, and we might get a $150 fee. So that'll really cover, it'll more than cover the association's legal fees. We will keep the association from being the owner, but it will be subject to a state-mandated conservation easement. In the future, because we still have many, many greenbelt parcels that are subject to this settlement agreement. In the future, we'll look at it on a case-by-case basis. So we're not asking the board tonight to permanently, amend this agreement. We're just saying on a case-by-case basis with this particular upcoming transaction that we not take title back. Any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, Pete Petersane, 2861 PGA. My question is, leaving the title with that developer, if they try to do anything 10 or 20 years from now, are we somehow in the loop that will at least get notified that they're trying to make some sort of change or other sale?
They cannot make the developer or whoever holds title. Because the developer sent an email today saying their plans is to donate it to like the Nature Conservancy or somebody.
So the Nature Conservancy may take title?
Whoever holds title cannot do anything with the property. It's statutorily controlled by the Florida statute. It is a conservation easement. Under the statute, you can do very minimal things with it. Now, remember, our lawsuit was based on an argument that the green belts were, quote, common areas. And so our lawsuit back in 1999 was based on an argument that, hey, these green belts are really subject to our restrictive covenants as common areas. So we always have that argument to fall back on.
At least two questions. Why does the man building the Publix 12 miles away care about a greenbelt piece up here?
Okay, and that's really a big regulatory thing. It's called off-site mitigation. When you pull a permit to develop something like a shopping center or even a small building, you sometimes have to impact wetlands, jurisdictional wetlands. And before you can get a permit to impact those jurisdictional wetlands, you have to get a permit. And if you're gonna destroy some wetlands.
Over here.
No, not here.
No.
At Publix.
At place A, then you have to offset it at place B to make
so,
up for.
Yeah, you have to.
Okay.
You have to buy something and forever preserve it. You call that? Oh, yeah.
And then the second question was, I'm sure he's giving you some really good assurances. Boy, this is what I'm gonna do. As soon as you sign it over, well, what recourse do we have if he goes, never mind?
No, we don't close. We don't sign the deed to them unless simultaneously at the closing table, we also sign the conservation easement. Not we, but him. So in other words, we have a closing attorney who acts as an escrow agent. He holds the money, he holds the deed, he's not authorized to give it. He cannot deliver our deed unless the developer simultaneously signs the conservation easement.
Let me add to that just a little bit. One of the things with off-site mitigation, there's a scale that is used depending on the value. They give each wetland area a value. And depending on that value, you mitigate, and usually the rate is 10 to 1. But you have to purchase 10 times as much mitigation property. And as for your question, Ed, we don't really have any recourse, but the recourse lies with the Corps of Engineers and DEP if they somehow impact that property. And also, what Mr. Bordelon was saying, that sometimes there are stipulations that go with holding the title to that property, where you may have to remove exotic species or do some fire prevention, that sort of thing.
And that concerned me because we were not involved in the loop of what the permit was going to require.
Right.
This way, it kept us out of that obligation. But I do believe, knowing the past, they're not really going to probably require much. But I have looked at some of the statutory conservation easements, and they seem to all allow the Department of Forestry to come in and do some mitigation, because we have a history here in Holley by the Sea over the last 20 years of sometimes having some fire issues. And so they like to sometimes come in and be able to, mitigate it a little bit. So thanks for your points.
I have a question for you, sir.
Yeah.
My name is Dan Ramsey, 1931 Candlewood Drive. I do not speak real loud anymore. My question is this. As you know, we have a real water problem here. Are the green belts able to have holding ponds placed on them?
No, not really.
You can't build a pond on a lake.
Is there some way to make it more wet?
Well, sir, well, not only that,
Well, for one thing, the water tables like that.
Well,
another thing,
In other
sir.
words, they won't, when you do a stormwater pond, or stormwater management plan,
yeah.
they will not allow you, DEP will not allow you to place a stormwater pond.
Okay. With the study that's going on now about the water issue and what they think we're going to be able to do and not do, and I was wondering if anybody knows, if we can use these green belts wherever they are.
I can answer that, because we don't own them. We hold title as a trustee. Remember, the Williams family bought them from the developer when the developer was finally leaving Holley by the Sea. So we sued to stop it from being developed. We hold title kind of like under a settlement agreement as trustees, so we have no rights to do anything like that anyway, even if it could be used for that.
Does the state have any?
No, the state doesn't own it either.
The state has no.
Well, the other thing is, Dan, when that's placed in the conservation easement,
Yeah.
is held in perpetuity, the
Yeah.
way it is. So nobody can, as he said earlier, can't
No.
do anything.
No, it's just an idea.
So this was initiated by the Williams Trust. This wasn't a Holley by the Sea decision to let public reach out.
No, they have always, the Williams Family Trust has always attempted to market their greenbelt parcels for the only thing that they can do under the settlement compromise agreement. They literally can only sell it for mitigation purposes unless they want to sell it to a public organization. Like, we were involved in the sale of the new fire station, now, I don't know how many years ago. But we can veto any of that. We have the veto power. But so basically, the Williams Family Trust can only sell this property for off-site mitigation purposes.
So that's how this happened. The public's
Yeah.
down there reached to them.
They would contact us and say, hey, we have a buyer. And then this buyer is represented by a Chicago law firm, and they're being very aggressive, you might say, because they wanted us to agree to this and agree to that. And I said, wait a minute, we're not going to agree to anything except to live by the settlement agreement. That's our only obligation. But we are doing a little twist. We said we don't want to take title unless we study it and learn all about the permit, and unless y'all want to hold title. So that's how this came about. So I'm very comfortable this is a good way to do it for this. So, but we don't want to agree with the Williams that every time in the future we're always going to do it this way. So I'm recommending to the president and the general manager that we consider this a case-by-case situation.
And where is this? Which particular parcel?
I don't even know exactly. I mean, there's so many of them. I'm sorry, I can't tell you where it's located.
How does this impact the original agreement for the settlement? I mean, will this have to go back before the
No,
court?
we're not gonna do that. The parties to the agreement are gonna basically sign, Mr. Jeff Sauer, that represents the Williams family, and I are gonna come up with some language that says, in effect, on this particular transaction and only this particular transaction, the parties agree. See, the court didn't sign this settlement agreement. It's an agreement amongst the litigants, us, we sued and they were the defendants. So there are only two parties to this agreement. So it's gonna be a one-time, just for this transaction. That's a very good question. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I remember in the past you have spoken that if we're going to do any transactions with this family, that we should make sure that they're current on their taxes.
We're working on that, but remember, this developer has a contract with the Williams family to buy these parcels, and we have an obligation to let that happen if certain things happen. So we cannot force this developer to pay all the property taxes on all the other Greenbelt parcels. None of them are up for tax deed sale yet. Your new president and your general manager are very concerned with that issue, and we have a side project going on right now to get all those taxes paid. The Williams family the Williams Family Trust got in some financial trouble, and they are behind on the taxes, and they have a mortgage that holds these parcels, a bank. They also have a judgment that was taken against them. So I'm talking to the Williams families, I'll call them their bankruptcy attorney. I'm not saying they're in bankruptcy, and I'm not saying they're gonna file bankruptcy, but they have an attorney who specializes in protecting debtors. He has agreed to approach the banks to allow some of the proceeds from this $100,000 sale to be used to bring all the taxes up to date, as much as we can get all the taxes that are delinquent brought up to date. So we're running a dual track operation here.
Madam President, have you talked to the lawyer about this?
Our lawyer.
Our attorney?
Our attorney.
I am.
Oh, you are?
He is the attorney who deals solely with this issue.
Okay.
And he's been the attorney for record, and there was a call between the attorney in Chicago and Mr. Bordelon and the Williams attorney, and then April and I, and that issue, we've discussed that at length regarding the property taxes. So as he said, we are trying to resolve that, so none of those properties go in.
So there's nothing to stop this guy, though, from selling part of that for mitigation?
It can only be used once.
One time?
Yes, sir.
That's
Yes,
it?
they can't resell the same property over and over
For mitigation?
for mitigation.
Right.
Okay.
Our deed will never be recorded unless the conservation easement is simultaneously recorded.
Okay.
Okay. It's my job to make sure that happens. Okay.
Sounds like a headache to me, but that's why you get the big bucks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. Okay, back to the agenda, the general manager's report.
Okay, I'm sure everybody knows that we have been very, very busy since the last board meeting. I just wanted to throw out a couple, points to note. We send out email blasts, and you're getting the opening and closures if you're on the email stuff, so you kind of have an idea what's going on. But for me, just so we state here, we've completed our annual backflow inspection. Everything was good with the exception of one of the backflows in the front. That was completed actually today with the repairs on that. There was a pipe that had been cracked by a limb. They had to replace it, so that was done today, completed. We completed our annual fire inspection, fire extinguisher inspection as well. We did have to replace 4 of those. I looked back just to see, on average, we replaced that many anyway, and their life expectancy is 6 to 12 years. The ones that we replaced were all at the 12-year mark. So the lift stations are scheduled for a 1-year pump out. They're approximately 1,000 gallons at each location. Unfortunately, we had maybe an overload, I should word it that way, this past weekend at the RV park. So we did have to pump earlier than we thought we were going to have to. Last year it was pumped out in December, around the 22nd. We may have to look throughout next year at the usage and see if we're running about the same track as this year. We may have to do it twice a year. So the approved duplex policy was mailed out to all the duplex owners, certified mail, to ensure that they received that information. All documents for the pier that were requested by the board pending the final approval was the warranty information, insurance, and their W-9. All of that was received by the board and reviewed by the board. We were waiting for a definite confirmation date. Right now they have other projects going on. We thought they'd be able to get to us sooner, but right now it's looking like right after the first of the year to start that project. So the pier will be closed until then. The kiddie wading pool resurface is scheduled for November 23rd. It will be closed down approximately 3 days to complete that. Obviously that date is pending weather. We have completed our training checklist for OSHA for our monthly requirement through Simple HR. They've also helped us implement an inclement weather checklist. Our vehicle inspection checklist was updated, and we have revised a routine maintenance checklist. These will be used for accountability and reviewed by me, and can be reviewed at the request of any of the members who'd like to see it. We've begun reviewing the other reservation policies. We have a couple of different, you can't start with one and not really look at them all. So we're going to try to go a little bit slower than whipping through them all. But for our campsites and things like that, it looks like there needs to be some minor updates to those. Nothing that's going to, we're not charging more money. It's just more consistency. But say a member wants to rent, an RV space. The wording says a maximum of 30 days at a rate of $20 a day. It says if they go beyond that, they're getting charged $40. Well, if you're a member, I don't think that the rate should change. So it's things like that for the members that we're looking at to try to see if, that's something that the board would like to modify. Other than that, I just want to say that we sent out the email verification form and the voting certificates with the assessment notification, and I've actually really gotten a lot of response back for those. So we are going to email blast that out for those who may have thrown it in the trash, and hopefully that will help us with some of the other notifications that we're trying to get out to members.
Just a question, a clarification on the email notification form. If you sign that, you will still get annual assessments by surface mail and any voting proxy.
That's right, and that's on the form.
Right,
It's
and that's what I said, that's on the form.
Yes, absolutely.
But if you sign it, then annual meeting notices, other meeting notices, all the other would come by email.
Right.
Okay.
All right, President report. Ron?
Yeah.
Kevin's going to kill me because I didn't write any of this down for him. First, I'd like to apologize to the community if there's been any lapse with the emails. As the board president, it's my responsibility to ensure that members' issues are addressed and addressed in a timely manner. And I do apologize. We do try. I think this board has done a very good job of responding to emails. We miss some, so there's nothing personal. I have not ever instructed, nor has any board member ever asked to not respond or to, refuse response to anyone. So if I have missed any emails, I do apologize and make sure to be more diligent about that. With, next week, November 17th, again, there's an MSBU, which is Municipal Service Benefit Unit, town hall meeting, or workshop, I should say. Henry Bruton from the Budget Department of Santa Rosa County is going to be here on Tuesday, November 17th at 5:30 to provide information. Succinctly, an MSBU is a way for any homeowners on a street to get a sidewalk installed, a road paved, and other items such as that. The assessments, there's been a lot of feedback with regards to the assessment. Again, I want to stress that this board, no one on this board took that decision lightly. It was something that we discussed, and it was a necessity. There's no projects that we're doing that are pet projects or just something that we feel like doing because we have nothing better to do. The projects that we have lined up really are, in our opinion, for the betterment of the community and this recreation center, and everything will be done in an open process. But there's been questions regarding to splitting the assessments up. Really, per our covenants, we're not allowed to do that. Members can make payments between now and the end of January. Anything that comes in after that, if it's a hardship, we will address each case by case, and make decisions on any hardship requests on a case by case basis. But I don't think a blanket policy would be good policy. There's a Board of County Commission meeting on Thursday at 9 o'clock at Tiger Point. There's only, this is the last one for November because it's Thanksgiving. So if anyone has any issues that they would like to present to the Board of County Commissioners, I know that usually they're in Milton, but this is a great opportunity because it's going to be at the Tiger Point Community Center. It's at 9 o'clock again on Thursday morning, this Thursday morning. With regards to the flooding, the best individuals to contact would be Steve Furman and then County Commissioner Rob Williamson. So if anybody needs their information, I will pass that along. I have been in touch with Steve Furman this week with regards to different properties. We're trying to seek solutions as best we can. As Dan stated earlier, there was a survey commissioned by the county commissioners after the April 2014 heavy rains to look at this area and to determine the best plan for addressing stormwater mitigation in the south end of the county. They will probably be done, according to Michael Schmidt with the engineering department, they will probably present their findings at the beginning of the year because there's only one meeting in November and then one in December. Their findings will probably be presented at the first of the year with regards to how best the county can address the issue of flooding. Veterans Day is tomorrow, so I encourage everyone to be thankful for the veterans. There is a serious issue that has come up over the last, since Friday, and I think it will probably need to be addressed by the board at some future time. I had not intended to make this public, but I think it's important that everybody understands and knows what's going on. As we're all aware, on the east side of our property, we have homes, and as we do on the west side of our property. There is a homeowner to our east whose property abuts our property. She has left, as of Friday, she left 4 pretty nasty messages with April. Okay? I wrote down each of her issues. There were 4 main issues. One was the Republic truck coming and picking up trash too early in the morning. A claim that our maintenance men were mowing at 5:30 in the morning. The children yelling for an hour straight in the afternoon, and then the lights in the back. So I called Republic and I asked them if there was any way to adjust the schedule so that the trucks would not come. They come every Tuesday, would not come before 6 a.m. They said that they would send it, she would send it to the operations department to try to make that happen. With regards to mowing, I called Ms. Sutton back and told her that there is no mowing that occurs at 5:30 in the morning, that our hours are from 6 to 9, and that the maintenance personnel come in at 6, they get their schedule for the day, and I'm sure probably don't commence to mowing until 7. That area, which is a little strip of grass, as everyone knows, has not been mowed in quite some time. She accused me of calling her a liar, and I told her that that was not my intent. I was just simply stating the facts that our personnel do not mow. At 5:30 in the morning, she said that she had video footage of us mowing. I said it may have been somebody, but it was not Holley by the Sea personnel, and we don't cut on the weekends. The maintenance personnel only works on weekends if there's an emergency, and the last I checked, mowing grass was not an emergency. With regards to the children, I informed her that it's an after-school program. They do go outside to the basketball courts occasionally. Their children have been in school all day. They do make noise. But with them yelling an hour straight, I didn't quite see that as being realistic. With regards to the lights, they come on at 5 is when their timer set. They are on till 10, in which they go off, and the reason that they are on until 10 is because the center closes at 9, and the employees need to clean up and leave, and they need lights to do so. She did not like the answers that I provided, asked for my supervisor, and I told her that as the board president, that would be me, and she hung up on me. She called back and hung up again. So I spoke with someone within the Santa Rosa County law enforcement and asked if there's anything we could do, because she's not a homeowner, and with the phone calls that she had left with April, and he said that we could, if it persisted, file harassment charges. She called April back at 5:02 because April and I on Friday afternoon went out because I wanted to see what the timers and to see if her complaints were legitimate, and she called railing at April again and saying that there were children out on the court. That would have been April and I. She called again on Monday, complaining again. So I called her and asked her to not call April anymore, and that if she did, it would be considered harassment. This afternoon, as we were preparing for the meeting, the Pam came in with a message from the director that she was videotaping the children. So, and playing loud Jimmy Buffett music, which we won't repeat the lyrics. I'm not concerned with the music, but I am concerned with her videotaping the children. You know, I know that this is private property, and they are in public, if you will. There's not much we can do about that, but this is something that we will probably have to address at some point, because she does not seem inclined to stop. And for whatever reason, she doesn't like anything about Holley being here. She moved in 2010, and I informed her that the center has been here since 1972. She didn't like that very much, but I just need the board and the public to know that at some point this might be an issue that we have to address in a serious manner, because it's one thing to yell at me or to yell at April. It's quite another when children are being videotaped unbeknownst to their parents, and I don't know what she was going to do with that footage. We can't stop her. She's on her property. And I already spoke with law enforcement about that, if there's anything that we can do. Our attorney is going to look into the legal aspect to see if there is some sort of legal recourse, but at this point there doesn't seem legally, other than logging this as harassment. So I know it's like the law of it, but.
This is the same woman that complained about our bear.
No.
In her trash.
No, this is, if you look to the east where the gate is, her property's right there. So, she's quite an interesting woman. So that concludes my report. Well,
been talking with Barbara Engineering this week, and they're making good progress on the drawings and getting the bid documents out. And our hope is that for the parking lot, that we should, well, keep our fingers crossed, that we may be able to select a contractor by the December. So if they can get those bid docs out, we get them back, we'll have a bid opening, and then we can discuss and vote during the December meeting. Also, there's another project that in the budgetary schedule is named as drive slant parking. And that has to do with the road to the maintenance road and the road to the beach house. It's a separate issue from the parking lot and entrance roads themselves. And so there's money programmed for that. And I talked to Evan with the engineering company. I had called him earlier in the week, and he went down there today, took a look at the road to the beach house and the maintenance road. And there are a couple of places on the maintenance road right over here on the west where the culvert goes under the road is gonna need some patching, as well as right in the corner where it joins the road to the beach house. He thinks if we can swing it, that it would be a good idea to, and it makes sense, while we have equipment staged here, to do a mill and overlay on the beach house road down to where it joins with the most recent pavement that we had after the hurricane. And so he's gonna, he's gonna draw that up also, and when the bid docs go out, that'll be essentially an add-on that either we can get another contractor. Chance is the contractors that bid on it are going to do the whole shooting match, so hopefully the price will go down on that. The only other thing is that I have is that the new gym equipment has been delivered and installed, and there was a little issue with one of them that appears to be fixed now. And I can't think of anything else. That's all I have. We're making progress on this parking lot.
Skip, you will do the gym? No? Sorry. Kevin, did you have any?
No, I don't have anything.
Deanne?
Right now, we're looking pretty good as far as operating funds. We have $1,539,026. In our reserves, we have $588,676. Capital improvement, we have $318,555. Total cash, we have $2,446,256. With going over some of the numbers, we are looking pretty good right now with our total revenue. We're actually year-to-date greater than what we thought we would be. We're at 14,000 more than what we thought, so that's good. But there are some other issues where we have gone behind, where like our legal fees, we're over $53,000 this year in legal fees. So that total for just current crew was $108,894.39. And we're doing really well as far as the pool, because we're natural gas, we're actually under budget on that. So we're pretty much equaling out right now, and it looks like we may do better than we expected at the end of the year.
Just a quick question. I know it's the latest closed out financial statements posted on the website. I think it was at the end of July.
I just received August.
I was going to say, do you have more current stuff? Because it's kind of hard to manage 3 months behind.
I just got August tonight, and hopefully we'll have September by the end of the month.
Okay.
I have a phone call appointment set up tomorrow with an outfit called Ballots and Survey and Balance. Those are the folks that do a lot of the e-voting, and we seem to be the main company. Played cat and mouse with the gentleman, but we have a phone call tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I've presented him some information about our association, and my hope with them was not only to go over the processes involved.
Can't hear you.
My hope was not only to go over the processes involved for the e-voting and what that means and what will take place, but to start with, to just get an estimate of what they're saying this might cost. And then I'll sit down with Rhonda after that to kind of look at, what are we doing now, and just kind of look at the cost-benefit analysis of that, and to see where it can be worthwhile and where it may not be worthwhile.
Great, thank you.
One more thing, our next technical meeting is gonna be on Thanksgiving, and the ACC had asked if we could push it back to December 3rd, so we might want to officially move it.
Okay, so the architectural meeting for November, given that it falls on Thanksgiving. I won't be here that week. If you guys would like to come up here, that's fine, the center will be closed. So therefore, we will not have an architectural meeting. It is going to be pushed to December 3rd at the same time as 6 o'clock. Thank you. All right, committee reports, the Covenants Committee, who is speaking?
Madam President, good evening, members of the board, Madam General Manager, and my fellow members of the association. My name's Tom Beckman, and I'm the secretary for the Covenant Committee. We've been, and I'll do our report tonight.
Mike, please, I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Move over.
Like that. Just start over.
No, go ahead.
So go ahead.
We've been working hard for the last month to make the modifications that have to happen to the covenants and the rules and requirements of the association. You have in front of you the product of our work, which are two documents: the proposed revision to the requirements to get an amendment passed by the membership, and the cover letter that will go with that mailing when it goes out April, when is that?
If approved.
If approved, it'll go out sometime between now and the end of the year, I guess. The nuts and bolts of that recommendation are that we have to be successful at modifying the covenants and the rules and the requirements of the association, we first have to try and get a reasonable quorum and approval percentage from the general membership to be successful. Several attempts to do that in the last decade or so have come up short because the requirements are that a simple majority of the membership must approve changes to the covenants and bylaws. That's a very daunting task in an association of 5,000 property owners, and it's never been accomplished so far. So the proposal in front of you has to be approved by that 50+ percentage of the membership in order for us to move forward. The change would propose that in the future, if that passes, amendments to the bylaws and the covenants would require a 25% quorum on the part of membership. In other words, 25% of 5,000 odd owners, 5,000 or so owners, must respond, and 2/3 of those responding must approve any pending changes that are associated with that amendment to the covenants or the bylaws. That's what we're proposing to you be put in place. First, of course, whatever your actions are, that's also going to eventually have to go to the general membership to be approved by over 50% of it. Last but not least, there's a cover letter that goes with that that's hopefully going to inspire everybody to vote their proxy opportunities and vote in the affirmative if they're so inclined and get it to us, which is going to be a big task. That's what our committee's been doing for the last month, and it's been successful, a little tough, especially because we had to reconstruct a lot of history to understand what we were confronted with. I'm ready for yours or the members' questions.
If you could elaborate on the process, Michelle, and the discussion that took part, as far as where you came up with the 25%, 2/3 number. I know several of the board members had proposed a number that had a slightly higher threshold, and one of the members had proffered a, even more substantial. I was just wondering what thought process. I know y'all worked on this for several weeks, and so if you could elaborate some of the background.
Sure. And I'm not a statistician, I'm only an engineer, so I'll defer to statistical analysis to others. But we did look at the statistical significance of 25% of the membership responding, 2/3 of them in the affirmative. What assurance would the association have, or the other members have, that that is a statistically significant positive or negative response? And the numbers ranged in the order of a 97% confidence interval with a plus or minus 3 or 4% variance deviation from that the results of such a vote would reflect the same kind of representation for the entire membership if everyone had voted. So that number, that quorum, and then that required number of positive respondees, whatever's pending change, is statistically significant in our mind. That's what we're proposing to the board as the backup for why that number, though it appears maybe it is obviously small, but it doesn't degrade the statistical significance of the results, is what we've concluded. Now, if you'd like to explore that in more detail, I'm going to defer to other committee members to explore that.
I think you've covered it, okay? It sounds like y'all have put some thought into the number.
We bandied that about a lot in our deliberations, along with text and along with history. Those are probably our three.
I think that was 2 hours alone just on the math.
On the mathematics. And we had homework assignments too.
Yeah, and he did some research on the statistical data and it was,
Now, there are those who might say that's not statistically significant enough. You could say that, but that's where we have to weigh in, or you have to weigh in and decide as representatives for the membership. If we're going to, if that quorum and that positive will give us a good representation of what the association wants, we would say, the committee would say yes.
Yeah, I was just going to elaborate. The 25%, we used a percent rather than a firm number for the quorum or the response, because 720 uses percents for quorums. And 25% resulted in a response that is at or higher than the traditional number of responses that we generally get in annual elections. We're pretty confident. I think it winds up over 1,200, around 1,200 people, which exceeds the normal response. So it means that everybody that usually likes to have a say has the opportunity, will be forced to have a say. The 2/3, one of the reasons it was picked is because in the absence of your governing documents saying otherwise, 720 suggests a 2/3 vote for covenants changes.
so number-wise, you're looking at about 900 respondents.
No, about 1,145.
Total that would have to be in the affirmative. So
Yeah,
about
so, yeah,
close to
and of
1,200.
that, 2/3 of it, a minimum. Now, if 2,000 or 2,500 people respond, wonderful, it still requires 2/3.
Yes, but the 2/3 of the 25% is about 900 votes.
That would be the absolute minimum it would take.
Just to put that in numbers.
I'm pleased that the method, I have been one also that wondered how you arrived at that number.
Well,
And I'm pleased to see the methodology that you do.
and of course, as Pete alluded to, we use the Florida Statute 720, which is the guiding document for homeowners association governing documents, to make sure we weren't far afield of what they proposed at the statute for approval of these kinds of transactions, these kinds of amendments. Now, our number is lower than the proposed Florida Statute 720 because, call it unfortunately, we're so large. Inspiring our entire membership to respond is a daunting challenge. That will be, we've concluded, that will be our biggest challenge, subject, of course, to making sure we want to proceed with amendment changes to the covenants bylaws, which I think is universally acknowledged by everyone. It's got to happen. Virgil working with circa 1998.
I hope you don't mind, but I kind of wordsmithed your letter a little bit.
I hope you will. We're Marians. We did a heck of a job.
Is that one coat too many?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your work on that.
You're very welcome. The work's not done, of course. We figured we're in a hiatus now until we figure out if we're going to have the success motivating the whole association. to vote, which means that everybody in this room has got to motivate 600 of your closest friends and neighbors, or 650 of your closest friends and neighbors to get out the vote, okay? You know, I'm almost serious with that. 2/3 of one friend. Well, to get the change we're proposing in, we got to get 50% of the owners to say yes.
So what is the next step in this process?
Do you want to fill in the gaps there? We gave it to you and the board to review. They review and amend, and then they make a motion to accept our proposal or modify it accordingly. It doesn't have to come back to us. And then it goes to a proxy vote, and there's a proxy vote publication process that works its way through the system over the next 3 months. We can expect the first vote to happen somewhere in April.
The first step is for the board to approve.
Right. The board has to review our proposal, approve it or amend it accordingly.
And according to the proxy that will be sent, the meeting will take place April 2nd. So once these proxies go out, people have until then to get the proxies back. So we are allowing for some campaigning and some canvassing, you know, to get back as many as possible. I mean, we would love to have, now obviously this one has to have the majority, or 50%. This amendment change. They have to be approving government. So that is going to take, it's going to take some doing, as we have seen. Yes, ma'am.
How long would you have probably to canvass or to? When do you think this would probably? So you'd have, I mean, there's not a limit as far as it has to be done within 60 days or within.
Well, a proxy is only good for 120 days.
120.
I think our thought and process with the timeline was that it would be officially approved in December. We would be ready to do the mail out so that it's out mid-December so that everyone would be getting it in. We would set the actual meeting date for a Saturday. That's the April 2nd date, so that members could be involved if they wanted to be, which would then give us enough time to put it in the paper and email blast it out and, you know, post it here, those kinds of things over December, January, February, March. So that was the thought there.
I see from my notes that I've completed my report, subject to your questions. Or questions of the members.
I just want to thank you, gentlemen, for doing that. I know it's a lot of work, and based on your emails that I've seen, and you guys have done a phenomenal job. I really very much appreciate the time and the thought that you have put into this. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Two of my co-conspirators, two of my fellow committee members, Bob and Peter, here to keep me straight. I'm a new guy on the committee. I made the unfortunate mistake of sitting at the front of the room, so that's why I'm sitting in front of you. But we're open for business, and we'd like to get this process going.
You also go up to the mic?
You may if you like.
Well, I mean, that's the way we do it. Don't take this long, but you got a lot of people over there pissed off like that. Okay. In order to even get close to what you guys are talking about for April, you're gonna have to open up, you're gonna have to answer emails, you're gonna have to let these people know what's going on over there. They're upset, you know. Now, I know you guys are new and all, but you've got your feet wet now, so now's the time to start. And I'm not kidding, because I get a lot of feedback, and people are saying, well, what's going on? What are they doing? You know, we don't know. They talk about problems with the website. I don't know. I'm just saying that if you guys want to get close to where you want to get by April, it gives you 5 months to start communicating, or you ain't got to burn out. Don't think you do now, but I mean, you know, it's an effort. And in order to get that effort, you got to put in for it. So that's all I'm saying. It's just,
To the communication, I understand that we have missed some, but we have answered far more emails than we have missed, and I do apologize for the ones that we missed, because that does give the appearance that we're not answering any. I have fielded phone calls from people less nice, and I listen respectfully because that is my job. I know that Deanne has done a phenomenal job of answering people who call her, and Skip, and Rod, and Kevin. So are we perfect with it? Let me just say, we're not perfect with the communication. We have a long ways to go, but, you know, with the Holley by the Sea, the news, the president columns, the email blasts that are going out, you know, we are trying to communicate. Do we need improvements? Yes. But I do take the exception to the implication that maybe we're not communicating. Now, there's always room for improvement, Dan, and I will, again, accept responsibility as the board president for that, and I will make sure that I'm more diligent in answering every email. But some emails that just simply say, well, you're a communist Democrat, that's not really an email that lends itself to responding. So we have gotten many emails like that where it's just, we stink.
If
more colorful
nothing
terms.
else, communicate by saying, hey, I got 50 emails in front of me, I did receive it, you know, as soon as I can get to you, I'll get to you.
And we will. And I appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
If you don't, it's not gonna work.
Okay.
I'm telling you.
But with regards to social media, I typically do not engage. I know Skip and Kevin are more proactive on social media. I've stated publicly, and I stand by my position that really discussing detailed issues, policy issues on Facebook is, in my opinion, not the best forum. I do try to engage when I think that is absolutely necessary for me to, but I typically do not engage on Facebook, and that's just my self-imposed rule. So, but we do have board members who do engage.
I was just gonna say, I agree everything with both sides have just said, because I think, you know, we do. I've been joking at times. I mean, I went to dinner the other night, and I thought I was gonna go quietly to a hockey game, and my brother-in-law, you know, brought along some friends who just happened to be Holley by the Sea residents. And he turned around and announced something to them, and my meal turned from a nice quiet meal to about a 40-minute discussion. Yeah, but my thing, you know, is that both sides will take it. I think you have a valid point that we're about to try to sell a product, and we got to use all the time we got to sell the product before it hits the street. And that's it.
You got 5 minutes?
And Dan, one thing is, you know, if you send an email to the board of directors and we see that another director has answered a question, then we don't all chime in respond to the same email. You know, we try to minimize the interaction down to, okay, Deanne's answered this email, so there's no reason for me to answer it, there's no reason for Yvonne to answer it. You know, unless somebody sees in that answer that something wasn't completely covered, you'll generally only get one response back. I mean, that's just, there's so much on the plate. It's kind of hard to, you know, we don't have time to answer 500 emails, you know, if we can divvy it up and take care of it.
Well, that's what you have to do, but you gotta open up those doors to these people. They're mad, man. I mean, they've been mad, but.
Well, then they need to be here if they're that mad. I mean, you
They're
know.
looking for a change.
Dan,
But then they need to be
if I
here.
may, I'm not sure what more we can do. I mean, all our information has been made available at, you know, the Holley by the Sea News goes to every mailbox. My cell phone number is on there. I include that in my call, my email, the cell phone number. You know, so again, you know, we do have board members who interface on Facebook. We have been responsive for the large part via email. You know, we are open with sending out information via the email blast to, what, about 2,500, you know, homeowners. So I'm not sure.
I'm just saying.
Short of me knocking on doors, what else we can do to communicate with the member. Now, if they reach out to us, then we absolutely have an obligation to respond. But on our end, we are trying to be as proactive as we can with information, and I don't think we've kept anything that's not confidential from the members. Now, there is certain information that we're not going forth because it's not complete information.
Right.
And I've had this discussion with April, and I'm a firm believer, when we provide information, we need to provide as a complete package, if you will, as much of the information instead of here's a little bit, and then we'll give you a little bit more, and then we'll give you a little bit more, because there's a lot of things that we're trying to ensure that are done correctly throughout the process, so that when we present it to the members, it's a complete package. And it shows that we're not just willy-nilly pulling stuff out of our rear ends, that we really are trying to be thoughtful with what we're doing. And so I know that there's some questions with regards to projects. A lot of them will be answered in December. We're trying to make sure that it, again, is a complete package that we present. So that when we field questions, we're not sitting up here going, oh, well, I don't know, type of thing. But if you have any other suggestions how we can be proactive, please, let me know. You want to be our PR?
No, hell no, I don't. You go to her. She get it.
All right, so we will, this will come back for approval at the December meeting. Do we need to approve it now?
No.
Or on Thursday? Okay.
No, we've got certain timelines. It's triggered as soon as we vote on it.
Yes. Again, thank you so very much. Okay, any other committee reports? All right, unfinished business, the full-time installation.
How are you saying like that?
Because I feel you want to throw eggs at me.
Everybody? Yeah.
And that's fine. You can throw eggs at us.
You know me too well.
Do you know where I live? There were some eggshells in my driveway by the way.
Actually, don't worry, but I'll find out.
So one of the issues last month, and it's not Jackie per se, but it really would have been anyone, is ensuring that the liability was taken care of with regards to the pool dome. Jackie has an extensive knowledge base. We reached out to her. And it was probably correctly unfair to ask that you would assume that liability, because it is a huge liability. So we have reached back out to Jackie. We are assuming the liability for the pool dome for anything that goes wrong if it goes up, but I have complete confidence in Jackie and Kyle and Tom, who have done this before. You know, they were here, well, you were here at least when the pool dome was first installed, was here when the company came down, provided the instructions. She's done it phenomenally the past few years. So this is something that we need to approve. So I would make a motion. We'll be deciding on Thursday, but I would make the motion to have Jackie, Kyle, and Tom install the dome. Discussion. The cost is the same as before with, I didn't write the numbers down, $1,500 for Jackie, $1,000 for Kyle, and then I believe $400 for Tom. And Tom Pitts is the gentleman who does our pool. So these are all people who are quite familiar with what we have. And plus, that's right, plus the day laborers.
So you're subcontracting this out?
We are, and yes.
Okay. Did you write that somewhere? Because I sure didn't see that.
Did I write it?
Did you
somewhere?
write it anywhere? Did you let the members know that you were doing that?
This was on the agenda last month and discussed.
Okay.
Yes. And it was voted on, but it was pending liability issues, but no, this was discussed in October on Tuesday and then Thursday again. So again, this has not been kept private.
Okay.
It wasn't finalized till this week, so that's why it wasn't put out, just so.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, the complete finalization of it was today.
Well, wait a minute now. Okay,
I mean,
so-
with regards to the agreement.
Yeah, before we decide, because you did send out an email saying that you had tentatively scheduled this for the 16th.
Okay, before we go around, I don't wanna do we asked that one of the board members call and make contact
Right.
with you.
And Rod did.
Okay, and whenever,
Well, I'll take it from there.
okay,
So Rod reached out to Jackie, and then one of your requirements was having Tom on board. So I had intended to reach out to him this weekend, but was really out of commission this weekend, so I called him Monday morning, and he said he was more than willing to help. He needed at least 2 days leeway so he could readjust his schedule. So my thought was that next week, because we are getting into cooler weather, the pool with the heating, you know, with it being uncovered, has to sort of work overtime, I mean, you know, to keep the water at the correct temperature. So our thought was next week would be good.
Okay, let me tell you why that won't work.
Okay?
The pool anchors out there, they're still never been cleaned out. I told the maintenance crew 5 weeks ago to clean those out, and they didn't do it yet. Once they do get cleaned out, and I told them how to do it, but if they need me to tell them again, I will. Once they do that, then we can come over, check them to see if they're secure. We can't check them until we can put some all-thread down in there, put a little pressure on them, because they're full of dirt.
You need to tell me what needs to be done, and then I'll make sure that they get it done.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure who, did you tell Ed?
I told Ed
Okay.
and Brian both, and Dan was standing there when I told him, so, and it's real simple to do, but it's time consuming as all heck. So once that's done, then I come over and check them, and if some need to be replaced, I have to order them. They don't have them on the shelf anywhere, so Meredith will order them. That could take another, God knows how long, you never know. It's very possible that it could be after Thanksgiving before we get the dome up. We're gonna try to do our best and pray that it goes better than that, but it's possible that it will not go better. You know, we can't take any shortcuts, obviously. Because once we get ready and we put that dome up and turn the blowers on, it can just come right under the anchors. Not a good thing. So that's one thing. We cannot guarantee that dome is gonna go up undamaged because we didn't take it down. So that's another thing that I want to make pretty public to know, that once we put that up, if something's wrong with it, and it has to come down, we've done our job, we've put it up, but we can't guarantee. I think it'll be fine, I do, but.
And we understand that you were not involved with
Yeah.
the taking down of it,
Yeah.
and so we understand that there may be some
You never
damage, but
know. You never know.
we'll get, April, I'm sure, we'll make sure that they get started on that right away, and
Yeah.
Yep.
hopefully.
The sooner the better, because, you know,
Yes.
and then Thanksgiving, and it's supposed to rain Thursday, and we've got a lot of things coming along with it. But I will, Kyle and I will coordinate. When he's got 2 hours, he's gonna call me, I'll run over, we'll be here together to do all this kind of prep that it's gonna take just to get that ready. And you already had engineered pulling come out and service the mechanical side there. So that's done. We're still gonna check it before, okay, if you don't mind.
So the dates may vary then.
Oh, they may, oh, they may.
Motion to move this to Thursday.
A second? Okay. The next issue is new business. So the first item, the motion will be to authorize, this is for John Bordelon. The motion will be to authorize the Holley by the Sea Board President to proceed with the sale of 2 greenbelt parcels and deviate from the settlement agreement with the Williams Trust by not requiring the deed back to the association and development has placed, and the developer will place the conservation easement on the property. That is the motion. I need to restate it. It's a long one. I constructed it with the help of John Bordelon to ensure that the motion was correct, so it's a little long. All right, so it's been seconded, discussion.
I think this is right.
All right, so secondary motion to move this to Thursday. Any objection? Okay, the next order of business is the approval of the Architectural Control Violation Review Committee. In October, it was approved to stand up this committee. Before I turn this over to Kevin, let me just state that there's been a lot of chatter on this on Facebook, and I think maybe there has been some misunderstanding with the violations. This is not a first step. We're going to bludgeon homeowners over the head. This is one of the final steps in the violation process. And this committee is to look at that policy to ensure that if we are able to establish a fine policy to be applied for the end of the violation process, that it is legal and that it is an appropriate amount. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Okay, we've got 3 people that volunteered to be on the committee, and I will also be on the committee as just an advisory position. not gonna be chair of the committee and not have a vote in any final decisions that the committee has. So in addition to myself, Eric Munch, he's a new homeowner in the community. Just for disclosure's sake, he is a real estate agent who works for a builder, Holiday Builder. So, you know, my thought process on that is that, you know, we're trying to represent everybody here with this policy, and the more broad consensus that we have on the committee, the more fair it'll be to everybody involved. Patricia Hove is also volunteered to be on the committee, along with Melissa Howard. So I make a motion that we approve the members to the committee so that we can get started and try and formulate how we're gonna move forward on this.
I second it. Any discussion?
This is different than the VAC, the violation of
Yes.
Well, correct.
which would be after this, even if we got into this thing.
Yes, the VAC would be, you know, whatever procedure is set up, and if a fine is imposed, or any, you know, suspension of usage or anything is imposed against a member, then that member, according to statute, has 14 days to appeal to the VAC, which is an independent entity that, you know, no board members, no family board members, no employees statutorily are on that committee.
I would actually imagine that the VAC would be involved twice if you went through the whole sequence of events, because one of the procedures is to suspend usage rights. They would go to VAC for that. This is further down the line from that, in which if a fine were instituted, I would assume that it would go before the VAC again before it was fined.
Is that why we're revisiting this, is because you want to fine people? Is that the whole purpose of this now?
The purpose that we've got is, you know, the system that we have in place works well.
Right.
But the problem that we have is of the 100 to 150 violations new to come in every month.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you come to an architectural meeting, you see there are only, you know, a half dozen cases that have gotten to that point where it has to come back to the board and members' office.
Mm-hmm.
What we're trying to do is to bring that caseload, that 150 cases, to a conclusion in a slightly more efficient manner, because a lot of instances that we have
And the amounts of fines and things like that?
statutorily, the maximum amount of fine is $100 a day.
Yeah.
And if it's consecutive issue, it can go up to $1,000. So that's, in the statute, that's the maximum.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be part of the thing that the committee will decide.
Mm-hmm.
You know, talking with architectural, talking with the ACC support staff, the people that actually go out and see the types of violations, to try and formulate, you know, the easiest way to implement it. I think it's fair to the members, but also make it, from an accounting standpoint, not to be a nightmare.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So the committee's basically gonna develop processes to get people to comply?
Yes,
With
they're
the
not
fines.
gonna do anything as far as the actual
No.
policy.
Yeah.
I mean,
So it's not
not
necessarily
actual
just fines,
implementation.
it's whatever else that will bring people to comply?
Yes.
Looking
And
for
it-
remedies.
And it'll be, you know, generally it'll be there'll be several letters, I'm assuming, and then, you know, at some point, you know, it'll get to a letter from the board or the general manager, and then there'll be a hearing with the VAC, you know, so I mean,
Well, it's needed, because there was one that was gonna appeal to the VAC, decided not to show that boat still there, usage has been suspended, but we had no recourse to get the boat.
Yes, and our next recourse in that particular instance would be to send it to legal counsel and try and get a legal judgment against it. And that's expensive. And if we did that with every single incident, we've got a file folder full of send to legal back there that we're still trying to sort through. And so, once all that gets, you know, we're trying to make the impact on membership be less financially of a hardship because of the, you know, having to send everything to legal.
I would like to follow that up, and maybe your committee can think about this. and I ran into this too, is these attorneys that you turn this over to love to stretch this stuff out. And you need to address that issue with the lawyer. You know, is it gonna take 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, let's go to court, whatever,
And that's one of the
mediation.
things that we're trying to help, is to not have to go to the lawyer.
Right, but
So
if
we
you
can
do,
compartmentalize it,
if you do, you gotta get this lawyer to nail down, yes, I'm gonna do it within a certain period of time.
Yes.
Or
And if we've already gone through all this process,
Yeah.
and we say we've got an outstanding fine of, just say the maximum, so we've got an outstanding fine against this member for $1,000.
Right.
They've refused all other avenues, and our hands are tied. The next step is legal.
Right.
So now we've already gone through the process and established a dollar amount. So at that point, it's just filing it in court, and there's no back and forth sending letters and mediation and trying to work all that out.
I believe there's still a right of mediation.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not.
So mediation is not out.
And that's expensive, very expensive.
But as far as the letters back and forth from the attorney and all that,
Right.
have already been
But
satisfied.
you still have to offer mediation.
Yeah.
And the member can accept or reject mediation.
Any other discussion? All right, so make a secondary motion to move this to Thursday.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. All right, B, the next item is electrical bid approval for the beach house. April, did you want to speak to this?
I can. At the last board meeting, we were talking about, the electrical issues that we feel we're having at the beach house. And to say that, I probably need to clarify that the beach house is set up where it has a kitchen, there's a counter space, and then a ledge where if someone's having a party, they put their crock pots and their food up and use the top as a serving line. Underneath there are the outlets for people to plug in their stuff. What has happened is, over several different occasions with larger parties, they have popped the breaker out there because the load is too high. And so to remedy that immediately, we put plate covers over them. Not that that is a humongous issue, but if we're looking at people who, this is the way it's constructed right now, they've got plates over them. And Yvonne just asked at the last board meeting that I go out and just see how much it would cost to get it fixed correctly, where it is split into 2 circuits to carry the load for what's already there. What we've already paid for that's installed, it's just covered up. That was a little bit harder than I thought. Honestly, I contacted 5 different companies, and I came back actually with only one proposed amount to do that. And I had the list if you want to know who we contacted. We typically use Gulfbreeze Electric for a lot of our stuff, and he basically said, look, I don't think these, his, no, I don't want to say this the wrong way. Basically, he said, why don't you just put them back in and throw a couple parties and see if it trips again. I don't think he understands the negative feedback we get already, so I really wasn't okay with that answer as another trial and balance, since it's already been done with Jackie and Sue, who have handled that already. I take their word that it was messed up. They're the ones that put the plates over it, and I'm going to take their word that it was tripping. The quote that I did get back, again, is a proposal to put in 2 circuits to the existing receptacles in the kitchen peninsula, replace 2 black receptacles with the GFI that is required, and use the ones that were removed in place of the 2 that have blank sockets now. That cost is $415. I know that's not a big deal, but for me, if this is kind of an optional thing, it was just something to give information to the board. For me, this is a follow-up from their request to me, and for them to decide if they're gonna hold off on this or they want us to get it done.
If we approve Webster, how soon would they be able to do it? Because we're coming into the holiday season, and I know that there are a lot of Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's parties, which most people have more than 2 pots that they plug in. So when would this end?
Within a week of approval is what she told me.
So it would be well before.
Shouldn't be a big deal.
It's not a big deal, no, it's not a big deal to
Got
do.
space on the panel.
Yeah, is there room in the panel to put in another breaker?
Yes.
Okay, so $450 is not a great deal of money to do that. I don't think it is.
I know.
No.
Well,
So
we didn't
have
know
permission?
what the cost
I'm
was.
just saying, I mean,
I was gonna defer to you anyway, so this
We
is
love
good.
it, it was okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
all in favor? Yeah.
Okay, so they could have it done by next week then? Or within a week, say the week after?
I mean, tomorrow, let me,
Well, it would be Thursday, so then, okay, gotcha. All right, well, I make a motion to approve Webster Electric.
Second.
Any all in favor? No. Any discussion? All right, so secondary motion to move this to Thursday? Sorry. Any objection? All right, the next item is website and safeguarding members' private information. I will,
No, we voted to move it to Thursday.
I mean, did we vote to move it to Thursday?
I said, any objection? Sorry, I did it first. All in favor? Aye. All right, so the issue with the members' information, we received an email from a gentleman who is concerned with regards to the privacy of, or how the process is for setting up an account online. So there was some email between me and this gentleman. I had spoken to Ray. So I will turn it over to the individual put it on the agenda.
That was you.
No, I didn't put this on.
Well, I put it on the agenda because you had the letters, the emails back and forth from. Well, bottom line is that, you know, we're verifying information on our website to gain access to our website off publicly garnered information. And to me, a simple phone call back to the member serves twofold. A, it's able to verify something that's unique to that person that would be in their file. And B, it gets us their phone number in case we need to contact them down the road for the database. And then, so, that's my suggestion, is that you just make it where there's a phone call verification instead of just verifying it off of public information.
Well, as I stated in my response to him after talking to Ray, when a person goes on, I'm just gonna restate what I wrote here, so I'm getting it right. When a person logs onto the website, the member's required to enter their lot and block number. Ray then confirms that number with the two internal databases that she has, and the names on the login request must match the names on the warranty deed that is recorded with the clerk of court in Santa Rosa County. So she is going off of public information, but there's also some internal database that she used to bounce the information. No nicknames or commonly used names are accepted, so it has to be what's on the deed. As for internal securities, I know he was concerned about that. Each employee signs a confidentiality agreement so that they cannot discuss another member's private information with anybody. So members or any employee cannot openly discuss any member's private information. And if they do, that's breach or termination. So I did send him an email back. I don't know that I got a response. Because this gentleman has extensive background with this.
He did. And once you get down to the bottom, he basically was saying, would be to add a verifiable access after someone presents a valid ID at the front desk. If they don't want to come in, or they live out of the local area, mail a PIN number to the address we have on file with the county.
That's right.
I just know from a job I had in Texas, I mean, we thought we had that pretty tight. We had a lot of information, a lot of other people's information, and it was not unusual for me to look in the morning and find out that I had like 15, 20, 30 hack attempts, you know, on that information, and that's what I think he was kind of driving at, is that maybe unbeknownst to us, there are attempts for whatever reason. You know, I couldn't imagine anybody was looking for our information.
Well, to me it seemed odd because I thought, and this is just a layman thinking, if you will, that if I'm trying to gain someone's information, I'm probably not going to go through all of Tennessee. But as this gentleman, you're right, with the email rightfully pointed out, this is 4,600 plus accounts that someone could go and get information from. So I think the first thing is just to ensure that our system is not vulnerable. That we do have, the security in place to safeguard against that. I mean, I don't think anything is 100% secure. I got a letter from the Office of Personnel Management that my information with the government was part of the information that was hacked. So, if they're vulnerable, then yes, we are too. So this is just to ensure the members that we do take people's information seriously, and we are, working to ensure that our security is up to date, and, we're cloud-based, so we need to make sure that is as secure as it can be, but.
I think that's all we can.
I mean, to use the top-notch, most secure website, I suppose, would probably not be cost-effective.
So is this being tabled, or is this just a discussion item, or?
Just discussion.
Okay. Is this something that April will be able to take care of without board approval? I mean, I don't see why board needs to approve, whatever policy, as long as, it's increased in action.
If there's any large costs, that would have to come back to the board, but I think that Ray has got a good handle on this.
Well, let me make sure that I'm clear, because I think that from what I understood the conversation, he wasn't saying that if you log onto someone's account on the website, then necessarily you're getting anything. Because if you log into mine, you're gonna see that I owe a balance for 2016, and somebody wants to go ahead and pay that for me, then they can. But other than that, they're just getting association, what we posted there, and that's what he was talking about, which is considered privileged. Other than that, it sounded like to me he was saying if they can get into that system, it's linked to our backup system. And I think that's what we're talking about, needs to make sure that there's on that side of it. Is that
and the verification, like he posed a scenario that someone could get my public information and then pose as me to get to get the account and then gain access that way. Again, what a person would really garner by doing that, other than, as you said, the assessment and then association business, I'm not real sure. But it was a concern of his, and not to go into this gentleman's story, but he's had dealings with this on a personal level. So he's concerned for himself and his family, as well as other members, yes.
So my understanding is that I'm gonna enter my lot number and my block number, whatever those digits were you said, and they can hack in and get that and get my name, but you don't have my social security number, so that's not gonna help them. I mean, they've got a stupid 4-digit number. Well, Lord, it was read into the record 5 months ago. I sat here when she did it.
All you gotta do though, Santa Rosa County, is go on there and you can pull up what blocks it is.
That's what he was saying, that's what he was saying to start with.
But you're not getting any additional information.
Yeah, you could go to Santa Rosa, you could pretend you could pull somebody's name up, and then you could take that information and use that to set up an account.
I think, what information? Here's my block number. I want to open the bank account.
Well, I think he wants to make sure that on the internal databases, there isn't private information like driver's license, social security, but
there's not.
Yeah. Things of that nature that would make, dates of birth, your children's name, your dates of birth. Now if they're in the youth program, then that might be. I don't have any children in the youth program, so, but on a member's information, is there the family information? I think that's what he's getting at. I know on my account, my children are listed, obviously. So his concern.
When you log in as a member to the website yourself, you see that your children are listed under your account?
No, he's saying with the internal database.
Okay.
If they can, gain access as a member, then that person can somehow get into the internal database system, that avenue, which then would, while it may not have driver's license or social security, it would have family names.
But those two databases are separate, aren't they? That's what I was told before.
But it is.
When you check in at the front desk.
That's MotionSoft, and the other is Tops.
And they're not linked.
That's right.
So then then that's not an issue.
Unless they can hack into the cloud, because, you know, we're our backup server, all
Well,
that.
And we know the cloud's getting hacked into because you see it on television and just don't put your naked pictures up there. Oh, no.
Well, I don't wanna make light of this gentleman's situation, because given what he does, again, he has experienced this before where he and his family have been on the receiving end of some.
I'll just verify what's going to the cloud and what's not, and then we figure out if we need to go somewhere else. Okay.
That's good. So there's no action on that. All right, floodwater committee resurrection. I don't know. We do have, on floodwater, I'm not sure what a committee would be able to do. There are, litigation, meetings that the county has that we go to, that Walters goes, my behalf, and I'm not able to go. So there is involvement, again, you know, I've been on the phone with Steve Herman quite a bit this week with regards to people's homes, you know, flooding and working with homeowners, and I know the county commissioner is very much involved in this process and trying to work this out. So I'm not sure what a committee, what the committee could do that's not already trying to be done. Yes.
I specifically came tonight to discuss about the flooding issue and some ideas. And would you like me to discuss it now?
You're down the list. You're further down the list.
Or further down the list?
You're further down the list.
Okay.
In my discussions with Stephen Furman, I did ask him if there's anything that the association can do. We talked about the green belts, you know, being able to use them for retention ponds, things like that. He discussed the water table, that it's very low, the water table, you know, it's just a few inches really, in some, you know, some cases a few feet. And so you can't really put a pond or a retention pond because it's so shallow, the water table. And again, with the restrictions on the green belts. So there's not a whole lot that the association can do. I know I'm going to work with the county on trying to resolve an issue with the one homeowner with the easement to see if there's something we can do there. But from what I've seen, and you guys can verify this as well, there's the drainage itself is not connected. I went to a home Monday with, she's got a drainage ditch to her south and a drainage ditch to the east, so on her side and behind her. And so I looked at the drainage ditch behind her, and she's off of Aurora. The drainage ditch starts just a couple of houses to the south of her, crosses Palmetto, and then really goes to nowhere because that eventually hits Manatee. And so that water doesn't go anywhere.
It doesn't even go to Manatee.
No, I know it doesn't. You know, that's what I'm saying, but I mean
back of my yard, and
yeah.
that's the beginning of that back drainage.
So you're there too, and then her house is lower than Palmetto. So
Right.
you've got a home, and she, unfortunately, their home is really like the lowest on that street. So all the water sort of floods into her yard. And that seems to be a big issue, you know, and then your newer developments. And according to Michael Schmidt, the Florida Land Development Code states where the water has to run off to. That it has to run off the property, but it doesn't necessarily say anything or address the property next to the home. So there's a lot of
weasel words.
There's just a lot of stuff that's not connected. And then there's nowhere, like on Coral Street, there's not really even a drainage system there. So there's homes that are low, and so the water, backs up almost to their door. So it's really just a lot of issues. And then of course there's only 3 main drainage points in this South Bend, or in this area in Holley and Navarre. And so when those 3 main points of exit, like to the East River and the Sound, are inundated with all the water going to there, it creates like a bottleneck, and so then that creates a backup. So there's just a myriad of events going on, and so it's going to cost money, which most Santa Rosa County taxpayers don't want to pay, to really implement a comprehensive drainage system. And whatever happens in Holley by the Sea, the county has to then take into consideration how that affects people south of us, to the east, to the west, and how it all ties in. So is not an issue that is going to be fixed anytime soon. And hopefully, when the county does create the plan, people will be willing to foot the cost, because it's not going to be cheap by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't know if that addresses anything. Yes?
Yeah. I'm sorry I came late for your meeting. I thought maybe I missed this issue, okay? It is an issue for me. I live at the first house on the left as you go into Holley by the Sea. Wow. But it's supposed to be an ideal situation to bring people in and say, oh, that's a nice subdivision. Let me tell you, there's an old saying in England where it goes, an Englishman's home is his castle. I must admit, this last weekend, I felt like I was in a castle. The whole place was covered with water. Not one side, not two sides, but all four sides of my property was a flood.
And see, with you've got these two ponds, and one of the things that we need to make sure that we are doing is the way that those ponds work, and you'll have to make sure I think I got this pretty down after speaking with the former general manager of Holley Water System, is those ponds connect to our sprinkler system.
Yes,
so
that was
when
only
it's
recently
raining, yeah, we are supposed to turn those sprinkler systems on so that it's a balance, so it's not flooding. And so we have to work out some system to account for the heavy rains. So even if it's taking the water down to an abnormally low, and when we know there's going to be, 8 inches in 12 hours to account for that offset, but that's trying to find the balance in that. And then of course there's the way that road is, it dips down, and so you've got the water that drains. So you are a classic example of a lot of things that are moving parts that you're trying to work. But what we can do in the future is to at least try to mitigate that, is to ensure that we are pumping that water out in advance of a storm that we know is coming, to at least maybe offset the flooding of those ponds.
I am pumping the water out of my yard across the road to the pond, because what do we do with it? Just leave it there and buy some ducks? I've got enough ducks over there as it is. But why should I have to pay to pump their water out into their pond? It just doesn't seem right to me. There must be some way around it. Have our people actually looked into this?
Yeah.
I will get in touch. I mean, I did speak with, he's no longer the manager, but Kim Walker, when he was the general manager of Holley Water System. I'll call Mr. Gardner, I believe is his name, and see if there's something else that we can do. But I know that that's the system in place right now, is the lines run to this property here. We are supposed to turn on the sprinkler systems to pull that water out of those ponds.
But that will never move the amount of water there. There's an incident where they put a new pipe to replace one which had collapsed across Sunrise. They put the pipe in there, and the lady at this side of the road was complaining because all the water was now going in her yard. So they came back and they blocked off the pipe or whatever he did, and now the lady right behind me is getting, the water's still that deep in her front yard right now.
Is that right?
Do you realise the potential of this? When people are going down the road, particularly maybe a little old lady going down the road, and she sees all this water, what's she going to do? She's not going to go through it, she's going to go that way. And before you know it, they're going to turn into oncoming traffic, and there's going to be a big accident and a big lawsuit coming, I'll tell you.
Yes.
If it happens.
Well, I'll get with Holley Water System and see if there's something that we can work together to help remedy that. But there, with regards to the flooding in general, just given, even if those ponds weren't there, I'm afraid you would probably flood anyways, given the nature of the slope. There is a county commission meeting Thursday at 9, and it is at the Tiger Point Community Center. So that would be a good place also.
An open meeting or
Yes.
a meeting for?
No, it's the Board of County Commissioners, and they hold their regular board meetings, and occasionally they hold them at the South End, because they're normally held in Milton. So this Thursday, there will be a meeting, and during the public forum, you are more than welcome to let them know that this is an issue, and we will do what we can with regards to trying to mitigate with the ponds, with Holley Water System. But you would still have flooding just given where you're at.
He's partially right, and we have discussed this back when I was on the board, ACC. They were running the sprinklers the other day when we got all that rain. The pipe's not big enough. That's one of the issues we have, is pumping over here to the holding tank and then dispersing it out. The other thing was, we had tried to talk to DOT out here to, that medium out there needs to be raised up. It needs to be like a hill, okay? because you got the pond and the road and they're both level. So of course they're gonna flood. We had talked to DOT about possibly raising it up,
The road of it,
raising the road up, you know,
You're
and,
talking about raising Sunrise?
yeah,
I have spoken at length about that,
Yeah.
but then what you have is his yard is going to, when you raise that road and you elevate it, his part and the area of Sunrise north of that is not going to be raised. So the entrance will be raised, but then you've got all that runoff from the raised portion, so how do you mitigate that?
because you're gonna have to put in a bigger pump and a bigger pipe in order to get more water from there over to here.
Now, I understand, but even if those ponds weren't there, you do that, and that area is still, given the fact that it's a lower elevation, is going to flood, just like the other areas in Holley by the Sea.
But do you know how much rain actually falls from 1 inch? It's not 1 inch of rain, it's thousands of gallons. They couldn't get a pump big enough to do that, you know? And part of the problem is, and what do I know? I'm just an old farmer.
You need to drink more water.
Why? Hey, the water I drink comes in a can.
There you go.
No, seriously though, part of the problem is, and what do I know? My house was built, let's say, 1998. Flood laws prevailed. They said you must build 4 feet, we'll say, above the flood line. Okay, good. And then another house was built farther down the road. Oh, let's make the floodplain 6 feet rather than 4 feet. Okay, that house over there, it is higher than mine. And the one at the end, the second model home for Bay Point Homes was built 6 feet over. So consequently, it rains on their roof, it goes in their gutter, it goes down their pipe, it comes across the road, and where does it go to? Straight down there into my yard. Over there, same thing. The higher up, it rains in the gutters, it goes down the downpipe, across the lawn, straight into mine. And I'm going, where do I put this water? Where's it going to go to? I've dug trenches in my lawn to try and siphon it out. I've got pumps going. Other than that, I could put a pool in there, maybe. Okay, would that help? So it is a problem, but I wish they'd see it not only on pictures, but come round and have a look and see that much water around my shed in the backyard. Not from my. In fact, I've tried to correct
Do
it.
you still have standing water?
Yes, it's still there. Yeah.
Get with me after, and I'll give you Stephen Furman's number and Rob and the County Commissioner Rob Williamson, and he has sent, Stephen Furman has sent men out here to look at that. So if you still have standing water, that would be good for you to get in touch with him tomorrow, and he will definitely send someone out soon.
Give me his.
I will.
Okay.
And he will be there also Thursday at the County Commission meeting. So that would be good for you to let him know, because one of the issues is the varying elevation of building.
Exactly.
And that cause and effect, if you will, the domino effect. And that's something that they need to be aware of as well in order to fix that. And that's one of those issues that I'm sure the survey that they commissioned will deal with regards to the varying codes that allow builders to build at different heights.
But they say, put a French drain in. Okay, put a French, but when I take down to the front of my property, where's it going to go to?
Yes.
Into the pond. The pond fills up and comes back on my front lawn again. It's a mess, it is. It's got to be sorted out somehow. I ain't going to pay for it. You know how much it costs to put a French drain in? $1, I'm telling you. Anyway, you're all invited to the castle whenever you want to come around and have a look, okay?
Can you open up like a spa, and we can just
Good
have
idea.
tea and dip our
No,
toes?
you drink tea, I drink coffee, okay? That's exactly, that's my biggest complaint. Believe it or not, we go out there now and the mosquitoes are crazy.
Thank you for coming, I appreciate it.
Will you give me a little note that? Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the information there, and I'll go home now.
You don't have to wait till you're.
I'll lower the drawbridge.
Well, I have your number, I can call and give it to you tomorrow if you'd like.
We're not on topic anymore.
Well, we're back, let's go back to the topic.
The one directly across here.
What started this conversation, and I don't know how it got toward me on the agenda, but I remember back a few years ago, we had a stormwater committee that was studying this. I can't remember who was on it. I think Beth Walter was on it, and Pete.
Billy Neal.
Lori Gallup.
Billy, yeah.
Lori Gallup was on it.
Lori Gallup.
And perhaps this would be a good thing to do to go.
That committee existed before we had a seat on the LMS. part of that committee's bringing things to the county put us, Holley by the Sea has a seat. We're the only homeowners association that has a seat on the county flood planning mitigation strategy. However, the only thing the committee did was collect data, take pictures, and report it to the county. That was about the extent of it. At one point, the committee said, can we have $30,000 and start an engineering study? And the association did not want to spend the money, and now we've got the county doing the engineering study, which the results should be here end of the year or so.
The result of what they did was that grant that the county got, that they chose not to exercise because Bob Cole, when he was here, he said he chose not to exercise or take part in that grant because part of the grant was they had to do whatever they recommended, and he didn't know if they could afford it. But it was over $1 million grant that we were awarded, but they turned down without even telling Holley by the Sea.
It was actually approaching 2.8 million.
Okay, I knew it was at least $1 million. It was close to $3 million.
And the county turned it down not only for that, but because instead of the usual 25% match, they would have to do like a 34%, 35% match.
But that committee did a lot.
I take it then that this issue is moot. I say we just table it.
It's moot until at least after we see what the county study comes up with.
No, we don't know when it is.
And unfortunately, that really is, at this point, I think the standard answer is just waiting for the results of the survey in order to.
And we're not the only ones waiting.
No, we're not. This is an issue, and the more development there is, the more this will become an issue, because.
When we called them today, the county, we said, isn't that report supposed to be done by now? And they said, let us check. And they, yeah, it's supposed to be done in November. Oh, this is November.
Yeah.
It was like a big surprise.
And it's not because I haven't asked them when's it ready, and they kept saying November.
I spoke to a commissioner months ago and was asking and tried to bring up, and he said, oh, you're in Holley by the Sea. Well, we're working on that, don't worry, we'll get to it. And it would just blow me off.
I do
There wasn't a
know
lot of real concern.
I do know working with the county, comments, complaints, suggestions from 20 people are more effective than somebody saying I'm the board president.
Steve Bergman, for me, has always been responsive. He
And
has been really
good,
great.
but I'm talking
Helping.
about more the commissioners.
Yeah, well, this is true.
It wasn't
Yeah, it's
Steve.
going to take more than me getting in touch with the commissioner.
I did hear that we're supposed to take pictures and forward them to somebody to show them where the actual rainwater or water was, flood water was actually holding up. So I took pictures. Where do I send them to?
I will give you all that information tonight.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll be waiting.
It's only because your wife has the same name, that's it.
You should be so lucky.
I know. Okay. All right, so moving on to the collection policy update correction. All right, so I don't really think this requires any action. There were just some minor mistakes with the letter that went out to the homeowners. It had a monthly Holley by the Sea assessment, which if it was $425 monthly, I don't think any of us would be sitting here right now. We'd all be in purgatory. When it should have read annual, the fee, the return check charge, and the late charge fee, those percentages and that amount was incorrect. So it has been corrected, it has been signed, and it will be resent. Is that correct?
Yeah, and just, we're not.
Are we?
No, and I know there's a bunch of questions about this, and just to be clear, because everybody likes to throw around the board and the management and everybody, we went to a new bank. Obviously, when the money came from FSR, we had to disperse it into new banks. And you have to look at what the cost is for the annual mail out. Well, with BB&T, which is who we have, they provided a cost to us that was cheaper than us sending our own mail out, and then it would have the coupon, and then it would have all this setup information to us, for our members, for cheaper than we could do it. Okay? I say we, Ray and I get together, I say, send me a couple of forms, we send a couple of forms, I ask her to pull down a form, this collection policy form, send it to the bank says, we will get you a proof before we send it out, okay? We called them and said, look, we have to meet our deadline of October 31st. We need to expedite this. Where's our proof? Our response to where is our proof was, we already sent it to print. So, I know there's a lot of conversation about, oh, you missed it, oh, blah, blah, blah. It was a total human error thing. Nobody's gonna allow anybody to make any little mistake, of course, but it was unintentional. We do not have to mail out a whole new thing, because what we would have to mail out, what they're speaking to is, if there was a change in the assessment amount, that would have to be remailed out. This had nothing to do with the assessment amount. So we will not be remailing, we will not be spending the money to do another mailing. We will post this one on the website, we will email blast it out, notate what changes were made, and that's what we're gonna do with that.
Yeah, the only thing was it was a typographical error. Nobody in their right mind is gonna look, for one thing, it's only in the collection policy.
Right.
And nobody in their right mind is gonna look at that and think we're paying $425.
Right.
And the coupon
Was
that went
correct.
out
Yeah.
was correct.
Yes.
We're gonna spend that money sending that coupon out anyway, so I mean, this was just
We've already
riding on the
spent
back
that
of
money.
it, yeah.
Right, so
that was
there's
just
no
gonna
sense
tack on to it.
in.
Well, there wasn't an additional charge for this being in there, so I know there was a conversation about, oh, well, we wasted that money.
No,
No,
but if
we
we
had
make-
up to 6 pages to send.
If we were to make another mailing.
Right.
Just to correct that.
Right.
It would be for everything.
Okay.
Right.
No action.
No action on that one. So the next item is the dedicated IT position. This is not going to be, there's no action on this so much as it is the discussion of whether we should have a dedicated IT person on board. We've had some issues with the IT company that was hired, and we had to let them go because they just were not performing their job. So we're not going to pay for something for a company who's not doing what we're paying them to do. So really, we need to determine if that is a position that we want to bring on, because right now,
Well,
there isn't a dedicated.
just to be clear, let's be real, because we're talking about two different things. So we had a contract with Computer Byte, which was paid upfront for the year. Over the last six months of the contract, they have not performed at all to the specifications of the contract. At the last board meeting, we canceled that contract and are requiring them to refund the monies for what they have not provided to us. So right now, we don't have that portion of what we had previous. So either we replace it as it was, meaning we get a company that does the same function, we budget a little bit more for next year because we feel like that honestly, if we're gonna get someone to come in and do it the right way, it was unrealistic what it was paid for to begin with. So we budgeted a different number. So either we just replace what was there. Ray's still our ARIT, and we have a company that whenever we have to have them come out and do something with backup stuff, they do it. That's no additional website updates, any of our issues with cloud, anything with the server, any of that stuff, then Ray would have to deal with on her own, okay? Which is fine, she's done it this far, except for now we're getting a lot of conversation about, well, if we had an IT person, they could do these upgrades, and they could do that, and so that's why the suggestion from Ray was, instead of having a contract like that contract, we approved that $8,500 for next year. Why don't we hire a part-time IT person, for that funded amount that's already been approved, plus the monies that were approved in the employee budget. So we're not asking to create another position and ask for more money. We're just talking about reworking the money we have to actually having a part-time actual staff person versus somebody out on a contract.
But the position is new.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
But if it were part-time, there wouldn't be any benefit.
All right.
Who was that dude that was here today?
And his name is Micah, and he is an outside contractor.
What was he doing?
He was checking our Wi-Fi that's been out for,
Oh, good.
because
Oh,
of the
good Lord.
system that was in place before.
That's
He's
why there's no
speaking of-
Wi-Fi.
So yours and Ray's suggestion.
This is her suggestion.
Can we make a
Okay,
motion
Ray?
so that we can have a discussion?
I make a motion to bring on a part-time IT personnel. Discussion.
Continue.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So the suggestion is that we have X amount set aside for a contractor. Right. For a contractor, we would not have to pay workman's compensation, unemployment, all that stuff. However, if we pick up a part-time person, we would still have to pay unemployment and workman's comp, correct?
The benefit that I'm seeing from this is that when that person is not actually, for lack of a better word, ITing, then they can be doing data entry and, because we've got a lot of records that we're trying to digitize into the system so that we can get more of our records online instead of having them in boxes out of shit. So
Got it.
that person would also do double duty.
No, he-
What kind of wages are
It would have to be within the budget that we've already approved.
for X number of hours a week or what?
Probably we don't imagine.
Yeah, we would do it, we're on a bi-weekly.
What about on-call?
Right, see, for us, we would want that to be included if we brought someone on. Because that's our issue is, with the company that we had, they didn't do any of our backups correct. They got us equipment that was not compatible with itself, and they did not perform on-call services. As a matter of fact, they were returning phone calls to Ray on Sunday at 7 when he was done with his other job, because he merged with another company. So what we're trying to do is just have a little bit more of an efficient system where someone is accountable to us. We can see them, they're here, they have, you know what I'm saying? Instead of some guy with a contract somewhere that logs in, remotely.
I have a question. If we take the IT off of Ray's plate, what are we gonna put on Ray's plate to replace that, or is she going down to part-time?
Okay, so again, we're talking about two different things. There's always been a company that has dealt with the backup servers and that kind of deal. When we talk about IT issues here for her, what she does, her accounts receivable is a full-time job.
Right.
So what she's doing for us IT-wise, it's picking up what this contract doesn't do is posting to the website, uploading files to the website, getting people set up with logins. If our wireless goes down here, she's on the phone with MediaCom. All of that stuff are upgrades for our software here. She's running through the training. She has to do the trainings for those and then train our people. That's what she does for us, for IT.
So she's actually taken on more responsibilities because of the situation.
Because the contract that we had before didn't cover that for that person.
Does, what you've got for the position though, what you got in mind is, I want to say this, is there a potential in this to go beyond part-time for that IT, or is it strictly a part-time?
The only way that I feel that it would be changed is if Ray's hours were cut and they took on her job, just her job duties on that part. If she went to part-time and she was
The AR
strictly.
duties. The AR duties.
Yes, if she went strictly AR and and we then gave those duties to someone to become full-time, yes.
Is there, would you have something then possibly with Ray's description that would allow her to continue to be a backup? So that, it's very difficult, the idea, when I think of like a company and that, I'm hoping it's beyond just a person that's out there. There's a couple people in the company that may be able to, be the backup in case the other person's gone. In the case of, bringing the part-time person on, do we ensure that we have someone that can be the backup? Because it is a critical position for us.
I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, I think what we would need to do first is just really flesh this out, you know, approve the search for this person and then flesh out the job duties with, not just with this person, but with Ray, to see how they would be divvied up, and then the price, because, you know, obviously
Well, I don't wanna say I'm taking away her hours.
No,
of
no, I'm not
job
talking
either,
about
so,
taking away,
you know.
no, that's not what I was referring to, I probably didn't state that well. But just to outline what the job description would be, and then I think you would be able, you know, to have a firmer.
Well, and I'm just looking that we've got a backup.
Well, she's phenomenal, I think she knows a lot, but she can't, you know, I do think we need someone, yeah, to come on board. Right.
Excuse me, does
Yes.
she want the IT job and not the accounts receivable job? Have you asked her that?
I've asked her. I think the issue is, to be honest with you, there's a load that she has for the AR and the IT, and it fluctuates. Obviously, this time of year through February, March, she's gonna be a lot busier than she is in the other parts of the month. However, she still is our accounts receivable. We have just as much as Rhonda has the, you know, accounts payable portion, she's got the opposite of that with accounts receivable. So I think the issue isn't that she doesn't wanna be involved in that, she just needs she needs additional hands and backup with that. So, because she's getting influxed with, why isn't this upgraded? I don't have chronological order on the website. I don't have, you know, the switch panel's not right. It takes us a little bit longer to get the end result because she's one person and she's got two jobs. I've never.
Does she not want the
Why do we have
IT
that? I don't know
Does she
why
not
in the
want
first
to give
place.
up the AR job? And take
Well, she
the IT
doesn't, number
job?
one, she doesn't wanna have a cut in her hours, from my understanding right now, or a cut in her pay. And to take it away, then would be a cut in that.
Okay.
I think it's wrong to look at the people and look what you need. Do you need a sysadmin? Do you need a network administrator, a webmaster? What is it you need to fill from the start, and then go from there, how you're gonna fill it, and what pay level, and, cause if you're asking too much like a sysadmin that's gonna do all your backups and all that, getting a part-time person that we're looking for $8,500 is gonna be a.
Well, no, it would be more than, because it would incorporate with the other, but, and of course, that's the issue. The issue is,
You have to look at what skills you have in-house that,
Right.
you know, and the sysadmin do what you're looking to do to all that correctly, you know.
well, everybody's trying to be really careful that we don't look like we're trying to hire 1 million employees and we're trying to do this and that and the other. So we're trying to be really careful how we do it. Again, that's why it was a shift in taking into consideration that this chunk was a part of the budget already. So if we could satisfy both by not doing the contract, but actually bringing in a person that will do the initial setup and those duties along with, you know, that was kind of the thought. I mean, for me, either way, we're gonna work through whatever that is.
I mean, I'm not sure we need a certified network administrator, the smaller network as we have.
Maybe someone for her.
But,
Come on.
well, go, don't sit there looking like,
Oh.
please.
No, I'm not, you know, you get what you pay for, and part of it
Yeah.
is that's, you know, I mean, part of the reason we ended up with the tops that it was is there wasn't the qualified person to make sure it all matched. So, you know.
I wouldn't let your bad experience with that contract taint you from getting a contractor here, because
Yeah.
there are good people.
There are, and they're about triple.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but I mean, if you define what you need and you put it out, that might be the price we have to pay to get somebody to do what you need. I mean, I want Wi-Fi.
I mean, you already had the.
The piece will be in tomorrow, just saying.
Okay. You already had the earlier concern about network security, so.
Well, again, it's one of those items, if we do go for top quality, then that's cost.
Sure.
And so then, again, it's, for us, it's a double-edged sword. I think all of us are going to do what we think is best for the association, if that means hiring someone or a company at a higher price to ensure that we are providing the service that is necessary, we'll take that hit. But again, there will be people who will just, and what do you do about that? You know, so, you know, the motion to look into an IT person, to carry that to Thursday, but I do think we need to look at these other companies and see what more, how much more it would. If it's triple,
then it was $25,000, and if that's better than bringing somebody on, but I think this needs to be resolved, because I know, I hear from Ray and you with regards to these issues, it's almost a daily occurrence, it seems, and.
I think we need to explore both avenues.
Yes.
Secondary motion to move to, Thursday.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah. You're so quiet. Okay, next one is the permanent pool enclosure committee resurrection.
I requested to put that on the agenda. I look at how many times we have to put this dome up and down, and it costs thousands of dollars each time we do it, and it has a limited life expectancy. This one went, for what, $130,000 or whatever that thing cost. And it just seems to me that it would make sense in a number of ways to put a permanent structure over it that could be opened, and it's been looked at before. There was a committee that looked at it. Whichever board it was at that time didn't pursue it any further. I don't know whether Dan was in favor of it or not, but I remember Tashwick was on it, Billy Neal,
Me,
And he still has.
you.
I was
Oh,
on.
were you on?
I was on the committee, yeah.
Would you be willing to work on that some more and try to resurrect
Well,
some of that?
Billy Neal still has a lot of the information that you guys
Yeah.
got.
So you got
Well,
rid
the
of it.
problem was that we were looking at $1 million, by the time it was all said and done, plus the solar little thing we were gonna do out back. And I mean, it was just so exorbitant to do this, that they thought the better deal would be to build a new pool and enclose it on the side over here, over there. Because the pool is like, and then once we got into that, it was $1 million and, about crazy.
Well, yeah, I remember they were looking at like the whole shebang
Correct.
for solar and everything.
Right.
And my idea would be to build the structure so that it's built in such a way that if we were to later on add solar, that we could do that. I think it would save us money in the long run.
Right.
I mean, how many of these $130,000 things can you?
Well, actually, it didn't, it was supposed to cost us that much, but we ended up, and I can't remember all the ins and outs, maybe she does, but we ended up getting a lot of that money back too, because there was some lawsuits and things going on.
They dropped it in the pool, and we got a refund of $29,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so let's say 100 grand.
There's that, and then there's, if this dome wasn't put up right, or when
Put
it was
away.
taken down
Right.
this time, it may be damaged, you may have mold, and.
Well,
I
mold's
just
mold's
would
gonna
like
be part of it. I mean,
I
that's
would,
just,
I would like to set up a committee, establish a committee, to resurrect it, if you folks would be willing to do it again, to look at that, as part of this concept of renewing the facility. I think that, we would save money, I'm sure, on energy, gas, pool heat. Eventually, if we were to put solar in, we'd save money that way. I think we'd save money on chlorine and such too.
well, yeah, but we also did put in a new heater.
Right,
there.
yeah, we put in a
When did we do
nice-
that? About 3 years ago, I guess.
Well,
4 years?
my first year on the board, so it's pushing 5 years.
Yeah, I was thinking it's about 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 5, and we went with the 90% rather than 98% efficient.
Yeah.
That's why it's still sitting outside and deteriorates faster outside because of the weather.
Yeah.
From additional research, the pump water solar thingy was not suitable for us because once the ambient temperature dropped about 25 or 30 degrees below what we wanted to keep the pool at, it would suck water out, and anytime that there was a chance of freezing, basically the months of mid-December to mid-February. You had to empty the system because it's pumping pool water there. You can't put antifreeze in it.
The thing is that technology is constantly changing.
It may be better now. It may be better now. That I don't know.
So,
But there is months
I make a
in,
motion to stand, the full committee, full government.
Full enclosure.
Promise to get committee members between now and Thursday.
Rod, there is a great deal of information out there that we collected. I mean, we spent months.
I know,
They're moving it to Thursday? Aye. All right, the next item, programs, is just more informational. There's no action necessary.
Okay. Again, there are a lot of things that we, as a whole, started out and tried to prioritize to look at. The programs has been a big discussion lately, and it's actually something that we've been looking at for several months now. There's a lot of talk about subsidizing and who does what with what programs and if we're losing money. I know that the youth program in itself has been targeted, but as a whole, I wanted to see where we were. So I got with the accounting office to go through all of the programs that we have. And I have all that information. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about it in detail, but to say that we have, all of our programs are 80-20 split with the exception of 3 programs. The 80-20 split means the instructor gets 80% and we get 20%. Looking at those, even if you do the income versus expense for what we get versus what they get, it's really not a lot of money. Could you justify to say that, you know, we made $600 on our program for the year and that covers usage? Maybe, maybe not. So in essence, we're still making money off of it. I have a little bit of contention with, I think that we should reevaluate the cost for some of those. A lot of these classes are only $3 for a member. I understand we don't want to, you know, keep charging people stuff, but if you got to go to yoga class down the road, it's $15, you know, and here it's $3, and we're making, you know, $100 for the year for the room to be rented out and all that kind of stuff. I think maybe we should look at that. It'll be something that I send to them to look over. The 3 programs that are not 80-20 split at this time are the youth program, because we have the employee on staff. However, the expense for their payroll does come out of their income. Our swim team that we have here at Holley by the Sea, as well as one of the aerobics and yoga classes. I do not want to make any one person mad. However, for me, it should be, in essence, fair across the board. And what has happened is some of these programs were established 10 plus years ago, and they were almost given a special treatment, so to speak. The yoga class that we have right now is a flat $17 per class if one person shows up or 40 people show up. What that means is, if they hold a class and 2 people show up, then we paid the person $17 to hold the class. That we as Holley by the Sea got $6, but we're only getting 20% of that $6 for that rental of that room for an hour. Okay, so that's in essence what I'm talking about.
Can I give the,
yeah.
on that case there that she's talking about,
from January, for 2014, it was a loss of $1,005.20. So while the instructor obviously, made money, the association lost, it was a loss for the association. So that's what she's talking about when we're reviewing these programs, and it may be that it's decided that, it stays as is, but we're evaluating each program to ensure that it's fair. And this one here is one of the ones that she's talking about where it's not an 80-20 split. An 80-20 split is, whatever obviously the instructor makes, we get 20% of that. This one isn't set up that way. If we required her to be 80-20, she may stay, she may not, but, that's one of the, let's see, I think this year, it's a loss.
It is a loss.
I think there was one week where we made $5.20.
Yeah.
So the rest has been a loss of more than $800. So it's that type of thing. The swim team, that's a loss as well. Looking at this, it's a loss by $6,300, no more than that.
Ooh.
So it's one of those where, when one program is targeted, it's a little frustrating because that one program that's been targeted, I think unfairly, is the one that actually does pay for itself. And so we just have to make sure that and I think each one of us are on board that the policies we have are consistent, and that each person who has these programs is held to the same standard. And if it's a loss, we need either to accept that and that it's going to be a loss, or we need to come up with some way of at least having it neutral, where it's not a gain and or it's not a loss for the association. And so that's the whole reason for this review. There's no motion, so you can't.
My thoughts on this whole thing.
No, I know, I was teasing.
Is if it's making money or breaking even, then fine. If it's not, then they either need to raise their rates or terminate the program.
Right.
And in doing that, I feel there should be a grace period that they have, maybe 4 to 6 months to try and get the program back out there, back into the gray zone or back in the black, or do away with it. There's no sense in the membership, subsidizing services. We've got amenities, but services are not amenities.
I was just going to give you a little bit of history because I know you weren't here, but about 3 years ago, all these issues came up, and what we all decided was, hey, just what Kevin said. As long as we're breaking even, we don't care. And it's good for the membership and stuff. They want the program, whatever. However, if it ends up costing the other members money, then they need to eliminate the program. If they still don't have the, like you said, what we make, $5 last year, or
You mentioned the swim team, okay? How many people are involved in that regularly?
Currently has 17 members.
17 members.
Yes.
See, that used to be a money maker. That was a money maker. I don't know what happened.
Well, here's the glitch with the swim team. The swim team coach in previous years was in charge of other activities here.
Right.
Holding classes, doing other things that help generate more money.
Right.
And she was on a payroll, so she's still on our payroll. So what's happening is, because she's on our payroll and not an 80-20, in essence, it's costing us more because her numbers fluctuate with who wants to be on the team.
Mm-hmm. So either we charge more or eliminate the program.
Or give her the option to be 80-20.
Or they wash cars or sell donuts or do what all the other clubs do.
Donuts sound good. All right.
How about additional programs? Don't we all agree that soccer is here to stay for the soccer program?
Would you like to be the soccer coach and do an 80-20?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. You sound like you could do the part.
I have coached soccer all over the world.
So you would be good then?
I am a qualified British or English coach, but I'm not suggesting
football here.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Is he talking about football or is he talking about soccer?
Football, I understand. I gotcha. Don't worry about these Americans.
These Americans.
No. But the other
money,
programs,
I'm all for it.
yeah, and that's the thing. I think when people approach, April, with a program, I know that one recently did about a ballet class. You know, this is, typically the agreement is 80-20, and that typically seems to make money. You know, so a soccer program, while it's not been, to my knowledge, implemented, I mean, a person such as yourself, if you wanted to create a soccer program for the youngsters, you could.
But by the same token, I brought my grandson over here just to play out on the field here by the tennis courts. It is covered in burrs. How can you possibly expect someone to coach under those conditions in a game where you go to ground often? I mean, to get that field or that area capable to coach soccer or even play soccer on, it will cost a bunch of money to get rid of those weeds. You know, those burrs, you know, they are, those little things? We went on, and I ain't going here, let's go home, Jordan. We went home because it is that bad. The expense, sure, it brings some money in, but the expense to reallocate that area for a different sport will be phenomenal. But rule me out with that, okay? I'm too old.
How long ago was it that you went out there?
My grandson, 18 months ago, yeah. To walk out there yourself bare feet, you won't go more than 4 paces.
Oh no,
It's bad.
shoes.
Sorry?
Shoes.
Well,
He's saying if you fall playing again.
I know, I
Or you
understand.
slide tackle.
Or you pick the ball up.
yeah, they got uniforms to protect their soft bodies.
So we will be reviewing these, and we'll have to bring these up as necessary to the board. Yes, Sammy?
I think that the children's programs are very important.
I agree. You know, I'm not opposed to any of these programs.
Especially the swim team. I think it gives the children an opportunity to participate in something. I just think that they're important. I had my grandchild here, and I enrolled her one day in the program. And I know that was kind of dumb, right? Just for one day, because I had to pay, you know, the admission fee and for the day. But I was willing to do it, and I was very impressed with the after-school program, all over it was, preschool and sometime.
And that's part of the reviewing of these programs is, as a board, we either, you know, we change it to attempt to make it neutral, you know, with the ones that are losing money, or just accept that that is a cost that, as an association, we're willing to pay. But it's just something that we are reviewing. And any decision, obviously, will be made openly and discussed, and this is the beginning of that process.
Right, and I really would not touch the school program, you know, the preschool program and everything, because the YMCA is at 100% capacity.
I have no, me personally, I don't have any children up here. We don't have any, my children don't participate in anything up here. But I don't mind, you know, it's just, it really comes out to just, for me, a minimal cost, but that's me personally. You know, so that they're, you know, the homeowners do have things for their children to do, and while it's only 25, I understand, that's 25 students, or parents, if you will, who know where their child is, and it's a service that is provided. But that is the one that pays for itself.
Right, I believe we adjusted the rates about 4 years ago and brought it in so it came close to breaking even.
It does.
The one thing I'm thinking about, like the swim team, I mean, how many of our members with kids know we have a swim team? I don't see it advertised. I mean, if you could, you know, go from 17 to 30 kids, that'd help.
Awesome.
They only have to pay $150 extra.
Right.
Some more advertisement?
Well, if that's, you know, that could be part of the equation.
We're also looking at lights, and if we really want to subsidize lights.
Yes, point of order.
It's a point of order, sorry.
Basically, it's just to say that we are looking at them, you know, it is our responsibility to look at them, especially it is mine to look at them to see if we're losing money or making money, if it's being effective, if it's not. And so it's really just for information to show that we have gone back to last year's numbers and where we sit this year to try to make sure that, you know, maybe there's something we need to foresee for next year so that we're not negative $6,000 for one program. I mean, that may not be a lot of money to everybody, but for me, I'm a homeowner too. $6,000 of our budget is negative for that program. We need to do something about that.
Yeah, and I think this will give an opportunity, once you've fleshed out some of that, it gives people that are running the program, like you say.
Right.
You give them the opportunity, even the ones that are doing well.
Right.
Give them the opportunity to see how we can better improve it, how we can better market it, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to take it away. It's just to make it what it needs to be.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is to update the architectural contact communication guideline. The reason for this is there's no standard operating procedure in place for the architectural office, or really for any office. And so we're trying to start that process as well. So if, heaven forbid, something were to happen to both Carrie and Shelby and the young girl who they just started to train, someone coming into the office could at least know where to start. Because as I have found out, there's a lot of, well, that's how I was trained, that's what I was told, but there's really nothing on paper. So it's important that we begin to put the job descriptions and the descriptions of each office at least at a minimum, so if someone can come in, they can run, for an short period of time, that office, at least they have the basics of what that office does and the steps. This right here is just nothing more than a log of the contact when there is when there is a violation that is open for the architectural staff to annotate each time they make contact with the member, so that when it goes to legal, or if there's an issue, and this can be, as opposed to a whole stack, and then you're flipping through, you're trying to look at the dates, you can look at this for a simplified version of, okay, the first staff member made contact on this date, this was the violation, the initial contact, spoke to member, and that's what it does.
Well, and I just want to say, for me, it is a tool because we have a little bit of inconsistency. From what I can hear, we've got a staff that likes to call, and that's their first initial, and do emails first before we send letters, and then we have other ones that just send letters. And so for me, especially from what I've heard, I believe that they should have to make the initial contact by phone, or try to. Verify if they can, email, verify if they can, before we just send somebody a letter, because that's what's, there's no beginning, there's nothing that I have to fall back on. It's not a policy. There's nothing in place for me to follow up to say, did you make the call? Oh, I did. Oh, okay, well, what number did you call? When did you call? Because that's been the argument between members, saying, we've got people who say, that office is amazing. They called, they work with me, and you got people go, they didn't call, they just sent me a letter. So to alleviate that, it's gonna hold my staff accountable to, these are the first initial guidelines, and then you document what happened after that.
Those are already there. They've been there.
Well, they were there.
It's called the Bible. I named it. It was the Bible. We had it in the ACC. All of that stuff you're talking about is there. What happened to it?
Yeah, that's my question, because I know there's job descriptions, there was
Well, there are old job descriptions from 2012. We're just gonna do updates to those.
Right, yeah, and that's fine.
But as far as this, we asked about a standard operating procedure, about a checklist form, and the
they
staff that are in there now said
didn't
they
have
do
that
not have it.
specific thing, okay.
Okay, I don't know what happened to it then. Right.
I make a motion to approve
Keep reinventing the wheel.
the updated architectural contact communication guideline.
A second.
Secondary motion, discussion?
Why does the board, April gets paid, why does the board need to approve it? That's
They don't.
okay.
It was
Because we're
something
trying to be
new,
open.
it was something new that I created, and because it was a new form, it's gonna require the staff to do something new. And to point out the fact that there are members who vocalized that they wanted to
If
be
you
called
feel you want
first.
them to do it, that's up to you, but I'm just asking that, I think you're empowered to do those sort of things. It's your job, really.
So for you to do
Just
my
my
job.
2 cents.
Yeah, and you have it comes too.
Yeah, making sure that everything is open and consistent. All right, secondary motion made this Thursday?
No. You did? Oh, you were, okay.
To approve it, so motion to move to Thursday?
We're gonna vote on it now?
I agree, Joe.
Okay, we, okay.
There's there's a motion, we need to vote on it up or down, and then it'll either die or.
By Thursday.
So, yes, so.
What's the motion?
Well, the motion was to approve this, and then the motion which was approved, and then the motion was to move it to Thursday.
But if we don't approve to move it to Thursday, then we have to deal with it tonight, because it's an open motion. So, what do y'all wanna do?
Let's just vote.
Go home.
All right, no secondary motion?
I mean, I hate to add, we got a whole slew of stuff for Thursday. This is something
So what?
simple. Margaret, let's take care of that.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the contact communication guideline.
It was seconded by me.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wait a minute, are we voting for it to be yes,
Yes.
or are we voting, okay, I'm really.
Yes,
We're
on
approving-
Thursday.
We are approving this form.
We're approving this form, we don't think we need to approve.
Because
Is
the
that
motion
what I'm
was-
understanding?
Essentially,
Motion
yes.
was made.
Never hurts to have top cover for the meeting.
Thanks, Joe.
No, I'm
Yes.
okay, I just don't want.
Future forms.
You don't feel like you're being.
No,
No.
this
If you're
wasn't
comfortable,
really a decision,
I
it
take
was
back
just
what
to
I
say,
said.
we're
Rewind
gonna
the tape.
implement this new form, that was it.
No, we're not micromanaging her, Joe. Is that what you think, you,
No,
we're
really.
micromanaging?
She had brought it to us, Jeff.
I understand.
So,
All right, so we passed it 5-0.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, the next item, engineered water runoff plan prior to construction and a wetlands study in the ACC builder's application, discussion only.
That was mine. Dan had made a suggestion that to me made some sense. And so I told him I would bring it to the board for a discussion. What we've got is a situation where we have all this new construction that's happening. The county has their hands tied, they won't do a moratorium. We don't really have the authority to go moratorium.
Yes, you
So this is just an added extra step to possibly ask, to have it added to the application to where they have to have an engineered study of where the water's going. When they build it, will that water impact the neighbor's yard?
And if they say yes,
And if they say yes, then they have to come up with a plan to do something with it.
do we have the authority
Yes.
to require that?
Yes.
Under what?
Well, we ask people to build out a brick, we ask people to have.
Well, I understand, but
siding.
that's the structure of the home, but now you're asking, for more modifications to the landscape above what the county is requiring.
Okay, first of all, we're not interfering with the county.
No, I'm not saying that you're interfering with the county, Dan, what I'm saying is, I think this requirement, would be above what the county presently requires of a developer.
It doesn't matter
So by
what the
authority?
county, no.
Say what?
Let me
My question is, by what authority would we have, not just saying, okay, how's this gonna impact it? Well, yes, okay, my neighbor's gonna get 10 feet of water, okay. So then what?
Okay.
We can then require it, by what authority do we have to do that?
Holley by the Sea has made themselves involved in every piece of property that's over there. We have forms that builders have to fill out, okay? The county has no requirements. You can build a house as tall as you want to. They couldn't care less. Now, I'm gonna give you a real quick thing here. 2.5 years ago, they built 2 houses behind my house. Okay. Prior to that, I went to the builder, I went to the county, I went to the ACC, and I said, look, they're building this thing so damn high, that when they're done, all that water's gonna come over on my property. Well, guess what? I was right. Just the other day, I lost $400 worth of damn motors for my pool, okay? Because all that water's coming back on me. The builder couldn't give a damn. Now, in the forms that the ACC has, and I helped draft these, and Pete was on the board at the time, I was over the ACC, okay? All of these are up to date and accurate. All we have to do is put in there that we want an elevation report when the builder applies for an application for this. It's just that simple, okay? In that evaluation of the elevation, he's gonna have to which he already is paying for somebody to come out there and survey and where the footer and stuff's gonna go. All they have to do is provide us with north, east, west, and south as to how high are you gonna be. In other words, if you're taller than the houses on either side of you, water goes at least. So it's just that simple. The county can't do anything about it. The builder can't do anything about it, okay? But we can do something about it.
So then my question is, we require an elevation report.
Correct.
And they come back, like with the example of the homes behind your house.
Correct.
They come back and the elevation is higher than the homes around it, then what?
Well, then they can't build it. We won't approve it. We have that authority not to approve, to put anything over there.
Okay, I see what you're saying. See,
Okay.
I was thinking you were requiring something.
And the other thing that you need to do is to put a stop to any more new applications at this time, okay? Immediately, until you get this done. Have this form done, the board's gonna have to vote on it, okay? It's just as easy as blowing out a sentence, you know? We gotta have an elevation plot plan, okay? They all know what this means, okay? I got over 100 emails because of something I posted the other day. And I would say that 80% of it was Holley by the Sea. The rest of it was dumb emails like you get, you know. But anyways, it's just that simple to stop this. We can stop it right now. This is what everybody's upset about. You're allowing them, you're approving, the board's approving to build a new house over there, and you don't care how tough it is.
Well, let me play devil's advocate, if you will. What standing do we have to argue for this if a builder chooses to sue? Because they have private property and they have a right to build on that property if they're not violating, any environmental laws or anything like that, and they're adhering to county codes that have been set and approved. So,
but there are no county codes when it comes to height.
I understand. So that's my point. So we're saying, okay, you can't build because, of this, you're too high. So bring it down some.
Right.
What authority or what standing would we have? What argument would we have if a builder sues? Because there's a lot of builders and a lot of deep pockets. Because we're violating their property rights to build what they want. That's not violating any laws.
They have to go by what we write as rules, by our covenants, okay?
Well, I understand like the type of homes and those things, but now we're telling people that they can't even build on their property. I mean, that to me, that's a bit of a stretch. Then this is what your home has to look like in order to maintain the standard.
Well, let me turn it around a little bit. If you don't do this, what's going to happen is Holley by the Sea is going to get their asses sued off by memberships over there because you are approving these applications for a new home on a piece of property, and we're getting flooded. Okay?
Well, let me ask you this, Dan. If say we have a policy that they have to have an engineered study, the elevation showing where the rainwater the stormwater is going to go
to be
on that
dispersed.
property.
Correct.
All right, elevation notwithstanding on the house, but if they've got a plan and it shows the swells being in place and that water being taken to the swell of the street.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now when we get a 100-year flood, or we get a 500-year flood, or we get a 20-year flood, and that water doesn't have anywhere to go, and everybody gets flooded out at that point, who do we point the finger at and who do we sue?
Well,
because we've allowed them to build, but up to a certain standard, and a certain standard was followed, but then, sorry, God decided we all got wet.
Okay, well, you tell me that I have to park my boat on the side of my house. You made a rule. Okay, it's a rule. You can do this. It's another rule.
Okay, but I'm saying if they follow the rules and they do what they're supposed to, and it's built as planned, and it gets to the street, the water doesn't have anywhere to go, and then it floods, we have no control.
I can't answer that. All I can do is answer what the issue is today.
Okay.
And today is, if you build a house here and 2 houses are beside you. Come to my house, man, I'll show you.
And if you've got, what if you built that house, you know, a foot taller than your neighbors, but your engineer said, okay, we've got this plan that takes the water to the street. All right, and then that water is taken to the street, but then everything floods. Now, because your house is a foot lower than mine, then you get wet and I don't. Now, you point the finger at me at that point, but I follow the rules and regulations, and that's where I get a little fuzzy.
Well,
See, and that's where it's so important to, this is not a bad idea, it really isn't, and
it's an easy fix.
And it is an easy fix.
It's a Band-Aid.
To a point, because as he said, a builder comes in, follows the rules, but if that water, once it gets to the street, has nowhere to go, it doesn't matter. So it's one of those where it seems like, you know, we're dealing with, you know, the county says 100-year rains. Well, we've been dealing with a lot of rain. I mean, you know, Florida is typically wet, and in my opinion, this is exactly what it was growing up. You know, this is how Florida is. I know there's some dry spells and some dry seasons, but as he is saying, if the homes are built the way we stipulate them to be built, the drainage, the ditches aren't being properly maintained. The drainage system, there's nowhere to go. So the connector, I think, is what's missing. How do we fix that? Because we're still going to have
once it gets to the street.
But here's
these
the problem.
issues.
If you don't do something at this point, okay? I mean, you know, we can't fix every issue. I'm giving this a great deal of thought, okay? And that's why I'm here tonight. We have to stop allowing these builders to build these places up so high. Do you know why they're building them up so high? Do you have any idea why?
Because it's dry.
I know why.
Septic tank.
Because aesthetically, it looks wonderful.
Well, now there is, and I do have a map in the car, I didn't bring it.
And the
because-
septic tank issue.
But there are septic tanks, and, because I went to Holley Water, because I wanted a map of what areas are sewer and what areas are septic, you know, or don't have sewer capability. And I was surprised at how much of Holley by the Sea isn't sewer capable. The majority of Holley by the Sea, based on this map that Holley Water System gave me, because it was, you know, after that email, is sewer. So, and because of our water table, they have to build them up. Those sewer, not the sewer, the septic tanks have to be built up. So then what happens when you have a builder who builds in an area where there isn't any sewer,
Okay.
so they have to build a septic tank?
It's all aesthetics. You gotta listen to me. These septic tanks that they're putting in, they used to put them in and they had this big mound in the backyard,
Yeah.
okay? And people didn't like it. It looked like crap, okay? So what the builders did is they came in there and they brought in all this dirt, okay, and built it all up and made it nice and level.
So you're saying just allow the mound for the septic tank is what you're
Yeah,
saying?
and then on the back side, guess what? It all came over to my side. My poor neighbor that's 2 doors up, he's got to go to the damn restaurant to use the bathroom now.
It's not good.
Okay, my next door neighbor, they're 80 years old.
What street are you on, Castlewood? Is that what you're saying?
Candlewood,
Candlewood.
you know, they don't know what to do. You have got to stop or somebody's gonna sue this association. And this is the easiest fix. Now, what do we do, you know, with 100-year, who cares? Right now, you have to stop this. We've about outgrown Holley by the Sea, okay? The only few lots that are left over, you know, are in between people. I've lived here 15 years. I never had an issue, ever.
Well, they call it a 100-year flood or a 500-year flood.
It happens every other week.
But it's
Yeah,
constant.
we had one last year, we had one this year, and one
I
last
could
month.
A few years, 10 years ago, we had a hurricane just about every month.
But-
But we hadn't had one in 10, 11 years now.
But if you continue to approve these new houses, and they're up here, we're gonna keep getting flooded. That's what everybody's upset about.
Yeah.
You gotta stop it. And we have the right to change that form. It's just that easy. You know,
Part of changing that form though is changing a rule, and I'm convinced anything that has to do with membership or plot usage is gonna have to be a 14-day mail out.
well, you're wrong. If you read the covenants, and
It's not the covenants,
listen,
720.
it doesn't matter. We can put anything on that form, okay?
But we have to give 14-day notice prior to voting it, and it has to be in the mail out.
No,
It never has.
No.
All these building, requirements of builders, they don't have to sod and irrigate to the street on one of those forms. They just have to sod to the property line.
If you look at the.
Majority did not vote on that.
If you look at the forms that we did back in 2013 that were approved by the board of directors, okay, you'll see on there where we wrote all kinds of stuff in there and things that we need to get. I mean, it's just that easy. This is not really a big deal. I mean, they're already getting the survey done. They already got the footer, okay?
Let me, if you don't mind, I hate to, because I like to use legal sparingly, but while I, in theory, agree with what you're saying, there's just something about this. I need to ensure that we can legally do this.
That's fine.
So I'm going to run
that
this
makes you
by-
guys feel better.
Well, it would make me feel better, because like I said, in theory, I like the idea. But before we implement, because to me, this is a little more drastic than what kind of siding your house or what kind of materials your house is made of. Simply because it's not just the elevations report that we're requesting. We are then going to require other action if it's too high. And so then we're almost with what they can do with their property. And for me, trying to leave property rights, I just want to make sure that any action that we take is legal, and it might just be the wording, it might be, but
that's fine.
small, I just want to make sure that.
What I would like to do though is see that this board, as well as the ACC, not approve anything else starting today until you get your decision.
Well, this
I'd
was.
want a legal review of that.
Yeah, this was discussion only, number one, this was a discussion only item on the
I mean,
agenda.
I know you're very knowledgeable, Dan, but I'd wanna hear that from our.
And I'll go with Shelby and see just how many new builds there are right now. I mean, not in work, but that have submitted applications to start work, just to get an idea of what we're looking at. I mean, I know that there's been a lot of development in the last couple of years, where it's picked up, at least on where I live, in my area, there's several.
Well, this has got to stop. I mean, I came to the board, I came to the ACC, I came to the county, and nobody helped me. And now it's costing me thousands and thousands of dollars now that I have to bring in tons of dirt now to save my property. And I'm not coming back up here to the ACC to ask permission to do it. I've got to do it. I got no choice. Okay.
Well, I'll get this to him first thing in the morning, and then I'll see what else we can find out to sort of expedite this, to see if there's, what we can do with, and I'll ask him about putting a moratorium on the new development, if we can legally do that as well. Because again, I mean, it's one of those, for me, it's a property right, so would we be running the risk of,
You have the authority to.
But do we have the authority to tell somebody you can't build at all?
Build a driveway 1 foot off the line?
No, I understand it, and I understand what you're saying, but do we have the authority? We're not talking about that. We're talking about saying to someone, now you can't even build, or you have to wait.
That is not
until-
what I said.
But when you put a moratorium, you are ceasing that action for 30 days, 60 days, 180. There are homes that have already been, lots that have already been purchased with the intent of building a home within the next 60 days to commence.
Great.
Something like that. So if we put a moratorium on it, and a homeowner has purchased, or someone who's moving to this area has purchased said lot with the intent of hiring this builder who has said, we are going to do this and we're going to begin this date, and they've signed a contract, and then we say, no, you can't. It's not, we have to make sure that we are on solid legal footing, because now we're telling the homeowner, I know you're transferring in 6 months and you expect your home to be there, but we're putting in a moratorium, sorry, you're gonna have to wait. So we need to make sure that when we take, in my opinion, what is a very, I don't wanna say drastic, but a very serious decision like that, that we are on solid legal footing. So it's not something that I'm 100% opposed to. I just need to make sure before that is a solid legal decision, and thinking it through all the way to.
I have no issues with that, and I think they'll back me up on it when we talk more.
Okay.
The thing is that expedience is what we need.
Well, I'm gonna send him an email and I'm gonna ask him to get me a legal opinion as soon as possible. And when I send a question, I don't say, you know, I don't frame it, I just simply say, can we do this?
Oh, really?
Is this legal? And so I don't want him to think, oh, this way or that, you know, I want a solid legal answer, so.
I just don't wanna see Holley by the Sea if we get in any more lawsuits. I mean, people are really, really upset.
I know, they have every reason to be,
They got a reason, yeah.
you know? I don't wanna be in a lawsuit either, and, you know, but I don't, there's so many things wrong with what is causing the flooding, but I understand your point, and if we can do it legally, but I will, yeah.
One part.
That would be, yes.
You can only do one at a time.
This is true.
You know.
And I'll ask that he give us an opinion as soon as
So,
possible.
you tell us that on Thursday?
If he can give me a legal opinion by Thursday, absolutely.
Tomorrow's a holiday.
Oh, Thursday's on?
Oh, that's right, Veterans Day is tomorrow.
Patricia O, 2792. I was at the ACC meeting, and there was a builder on the committee. And he said, depending on the perk test, is where you're supposed to, how high you're supposed to put your septic lines. So what he does as a builder, he raises his homes to accommodate the height that is required for the septic field, thus flooding the neighbors. What did they do in Tiger Point? Tiger Point has flooded. All these new homes are coming in elevated. They don't elevate the ground around the home, they just elevate the homes. Thus, they're not flooding the neighbors. New homes that are built in Tiger Point are elevated because it floods so bad. So, yes, it is cosmetic for the builder to bring his, because they're building on, all the prime lots have been taken, I would assume. If you go down Sherwood, Holiday Builder is building on a wet lot. When they cleared it, it was wet.
Still is.
It's still wet, so they're building it very high.
And what about their neighbors?
They're,
There's nothing in the covenants about neighbors.
yeah.
I know.
So what's this demucking? What happened to demucking?
What's that mean?
If it doesn't drain, you're supposed to take out the wet.
The sticky
Right,
stuff.
they don't do it.
I did it, but a lot of people don't.
All right, thank you very much, Dan, and I will have him get us an opinion as quickly as possible so that I can put that out.
Can I make one more point for me?
Yes?
Being a fellow floodie, what's the first thing they ask you when you fill out the insurance for your new house?
If you flood.
Thank you very much. Are you on the floodplain or not? So, if you're on the floodplain, you're in big problems, so your insurance goes up. So that is
Well,
another
let me ask
reason.
you, where you are you in a flood zone?
We weren't, but now we are.
No, you flooded. You're not in the flood zone.
Yeah.
You flooded, but technically, legally, you're not in the flood
No,
zone.
why did- why
So the
did
flood
they-
zone's irrelevant to whether or not you flood.
Well, you're in a flood zone X.
I have no
But
idea.
it will-
what that is.
It's a flood, you're in a flood zone, everything in Holley by the Sea is in a flood zone.
Everything on the face of the
We're in a
earth
flood zone
could
X.
flood at some point, but
We're in a-
according to the
it's-
legal
it's called a
definition.
500-year
So what do we
flood.
all do? We all build an ark?
Okay, moving on to the next item.
Oh, I remember what it was. I sat down for that.
Name and address.
That's what I remember. Ed Good, 26 Fort Royal.
Oh, you're Ed Good.
Good to see you.
I knew your name was Ed, but I didn't know you were.
That name.
You and me are gonna go have a cup of coffee afterwards.
Okay, so when you go to legal, I would simply request that a legal be approached with a mental attitude of seeing if we can't find a way to make something very similar to what Dan proposed feasible and doable, as opposed to approaching them to look for a way to get out of having to do it.
No, what I meant by that is,
I'm just saying,
I don't-
do we really have to do this, or how can we make this work?
well, from
How it's presented.
what I've been told in my experience, it seems that legal has given the opinion they think the board wants to hear. What I would want is just solid legal opinion. You know, is this legal? And then we can go from there. If it's legal, yes, then we can take it from there. So I don't want to frame this question in such a way that lends itself one way or the other. I understand completely what you're saying, but it's just a straight up, can we do this?
But as far as your point about people who have got bank financing, contractors and stuff, totally unfair to put the brakes on them. They're too far down that road.
But see, and that's it, just it, how do we know?
But property that's been bought for speculation and held by corporations, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But we made that clear, Ed, when we brought this attorney on board, that we didn't wanna hear just what we wanna hear.
Yeah.
We wanna hear a good, solid legal opinion. That's one of the reasons we hired you.
All right, so I'm just gonna make a motion to rescind the canvassing policy. Do I get a second? Okay, short discussion. It is, can I say our opinion? Can I get a collective hour? No? Okay. It is my opinion that this was done purely for personal gain and that there was really no need for this other than a personal agenda. So the motion is to rescind it because we only have like 4 minutes. Can we?
I'll just put my point in.
Okay.
I don't question, why, et cetera, it was put in and things like that. But quite frankly, the only thing I would change in my mind is at the end, say, the canvassing, campaigning, and signposting in the lobby area and the internal walkways or internal hallways is prohibited. I just think that when people come in there, we need to say something, if you will. There's no reason. I understand why it was all kind of done, kind of thing, but to me, it's not a bad thing.
Well, but to me, there are signs posted about community events that have a good purpose. And so this right now, like that Joy Fest event, those signs would not be permitted to be posted. The only thing that could be posted would be Holley by the Sea. And I think that is just
Well, then
a
I've got to
disservice.
take out canvassing, campaigning, posting. The thing is,
But in the past, campaigning and canvassing was never an issue. Campaigning and canvassing has really never been an issue. Well, it is extremely rarely, double effort there, an issue. Because this was put in place, but we're gonna have to move this to Thursday, we can discuss it.
Just one thing, this came up as a discussion from the Covenants Committee, thinking that in order to reach the threshold to get this through, we are going to have to potentially have people in the lobby catching people to remind them to vote one way or the other on Covenants amendments. And at least the way we read this current policy, that would be precluded.
Motion to move to Thursday.
Second.
you got someone up here, someone at the podium.
I know, we're going to just, yes, same,
Are we in open discussion?
not yet.
Almost.
So, motion to Thursday was seconded, all in favor? And we can have more discussion on this Thursday, we should have more time.